Great pleasure. Just a few months ago, a Tampa native, a friend to many of us here and no stranger to this City Hall. If we could please stand for the invocation and remain standing for the pledge. Mr. Cohen.
Well, thank you very much, Councilman Maniscalco. It's my pleasure to be here this morning. We ask God's blessing on our community, on our Mayor, Jane Castor, on our City Council members as they embark on their important work, and on our first responders and all of the men and women that serve our city and our community in so many different capacities. As you turn to your work this morning as the Community Redevelopment Agency, I would like to offer these words. I believe that Margaret Thatcher, when she became Prime Minister of Great Britain, referenced that they are from St. Francis of Assisi. Where there is discord, may we bring harmony. Where there is error, may we bring truth. Where there is doubt, may we bring faith. And where there is despair, may we bring hope. Amen.
Amen. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Dingfelder, Goods, Maniscalco,
Here.
Vieira, Miranda, Carlson, and Citro.
Here. And Councilman Dingfelder will be joining us momentarily. Who do I see up at the podium? Chief, are you here?
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, Board. John Bennett, Chief of Staff, City of Tampa. We're here for our monthly CRA meeting. And of course, as you know through the agenda, that we will kick it off with our CAC representative, Mr. Joseph Robinson.
Thank you. Mr. Robinson.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good morning, good morning. City Council, I want to thank, I guess it's my time since I'm the CR Chair of West Tampa Citizen Advisory Committee. And I'm here to report on the activities of the West Tampa CRA since the last time I was here. Breaking it out, the direct CRA activities, the West Tampa CAC subcommittees continue their work. The committees are special events, economic development, infrastructure, and housing. These subcommittees are the key areas identified in the West Tampa Strategic Plan, which were adopted by the CRA Board in October of 2018. Our Housing Subcommittee is working on a partnership with the City of Tampa Housing Department on a housing rehab program. The owner-occupied rehab program and budget was approved by the CAC in August and will come to the CRA Board in December. The West Tampa CRA Facade Grant Program is active. Staff is currently taking applications. The West Tampa Facade Program was approved by the CRA Board in April of 2019 and was identified in the West Tampa Strategic Action Plan. There are 2 new facade grant applications on today's November CRA Board agenda. Our Special Events Subcommittee will continue to evaluate applications for special events in the West Tampa CRA. The program was created to encourage groups to hold special events within the West Tampa CRA, and the CRA Board approved the program in December of 2018. The West Tampa CAC approved the budget for the installation of 4 cameras along Main Street at the intersections of Rome, Albany, Howard, and Armenia. These 4 cameras will be installed, operated, and monitored by the Tampa Police Department. The program changed to fund the installation of the cameras in today's November CRA agenda, so it's on the agenda today. Installation of the camera falls under the safety initiatives within our West Tampa Strategic Action Plan. And the West Tampa CAC and the community wants to thank the Tampa Police Department and other law enforcement, including the FBI agencies, for apprehending a suspect in the West Tampa double homicide shooting on October 31st, Halloween. This brought great relief to the immediate areas of crime. We've had at least 5 shootings in West Tampa, 2 of these double homicide October 31st. We've had at least 1, 2, 3 on Main Street and the adjacent Howard Avenue. This is why we're requesting these cameras at this time. The indirect CRA activities, the City of Tampa's Stormwater Department is currently constructing the Cypress Street outfall. The project consists of the construction of a dual box culvert for an existing stub at Cass and North Boulevard to Rome Avenue. Another box culvert will connect at Cass and Rome Avenue and run south towards Kennedy Boulevard to help eliminate flooding in the area. About a $25 or $30 million project, not CRA funds, but from regular city funding and Swift Mud grant match. The City of Tampa has completed the design for Phase 2 of the East-West Green Spine Cycle Track. The project consists of an urban trail cycle track along Cass Street to connect North Hyde Park from Howard to the Hillsborough River. Tampa Housing Authority, that will be giving a report today if the meeting goes that long. Tampa Housing Authority is underway with the construction of Renaissance at West River on the corner of Main and Rome Avenue. THA has also broke ground on the rehabilitation of the Mary McLeod Bethune high-rise project. The Housing Authority received financing for a 3rd project that is currently in the permitting process located on the corner of Main and Oregon. Tampa Electric Company has been installing additional LED streetlights and it's almost done. Then they will finish the conversion effort on all sodium lights in West Tampa CRA area to LEDs. So that will be another safety issue and another issue to help reduce crime. And because of that, we want to thank Nancy Tower, President and CEO of TICO, which I had a chance to meet with her on Halloween, and also one of the city staffers, Jan Washington. She's sort of quiet, but I'm going to call her name out today. Jan Washington from the City of Tampa has helped us with this lighting issue for the past 2 to 3 years and getting these LEDs. It's not easy to get TICO to make a move, but by having these LEDs, it will increase safety and decrease crime in the West Tampa CRA area. And finally, notable events that have occurred. The West Tampa Chamber of Commerce that sits on our Citizen Advisory Committee hosted the Flavor of West Tampa, Sangria and Cigars on Sunday, this past Sunday, November 10th at Julian B. Lane Riverfront Park. I want to apologize for not being there because I was engaged to go over to the Bucks and help them win with being the root man for the Bucks. So that's why I missed the event. I went to church early. I couldn't even get after church, but the Bucks told me they want the root man, so that's where I was. The other thing is Metropolitan Ministries will be hosting their holiday food drive within the West Tampa CRA boundary at 2609 West Rome Avenue. Our West Tampa CAC requested that the Metropolitan Ministries leave the tent up in 2021 so that our committee could work with them to allow us to use the tent for potential Super Bowl events, possibly fundraising for our community. They agreed to work with us on this effort because there's some issues with the traffic there. If you go by, you'll see the tent there. So we said, leave it up. We got something we can do with it for 2021 because they usually take it down in January. We said, leave it up. We think we can do something with that. And finally, the Super Bowl 55 host committee held a kickoff to their Business Connect program at the Brian Glazer Jewish Community Center, which is in the CRA on November the 12th, just this week. And this program will connect women, minority, and LGBT businesses with opportunities for contracts during the Super Bowl double nickel 55 known as the Derrick Brooks Super Bowl in 2021. And with that, I say that's our report for West Tampa, and thank you for your time. Is there any questions?
Mr. Robinson, yes. Councilman Dinkfelder.
Morning, Joe. Thank you for all you do in our community and specifically leading the CAC. I had the opportunity, as you recall, a couple of weeks ago to pop in on your meeting just for a few minutes before I had to get going and go elsewhere. But I could just tell it seemed like a really good group y'all put together. Everybody was respectful of one another. Bright, focused group, and we appreciate your leadership in that regard. That's on the positive note. I also had a meeting last week with the Old West Tampa Neighborhood Association. It's a relatively small group, and those ladies told me that they were very concerned about crime, and I mentioned this to Mr. Bennett right after I was at that meeting, that they wanted to make sure that TPD was all over that neighborhood, because for whatever reason things seem to be bubbling up recently. You mentioned that earlier. I'm glad to hear that we've apprehended some of these bad folks, but anyway, I just want to make sure that, and Mr. Bennett's sitting here as well, that TPD is all over that neighborhood, and we get on top of that. So.
Mr. Dingfelder, just recently as last week, I was sitting in a barber shop. A guy robbed a person, broad daylight, ran into the lady that does hair braids across the street. She's been there for years. Police came there, apprehended him, took him out of there. Everybody was quiet, didn't violate nobody's civil rights, and everything went on hunky-dory. The Tampa Police Department will come in West Tampa anytime we need it. The Old West Tampa group has a representative that sits on our advisory committee, Bobby Wilson, and so he's let us know that. But we don't want to over-police West Tampa, but we don't want no necessarily killing and shooting and all that over there in West Tampa, okay? Because I've been up 4 o'clock this morning tracking people down. So what I'm just saying is that we're working on it. It's a work in progress, and that is why we asked you to approve the cameras on Main Street, because we want to bring development there, and one of the ways to bring development there is to make it safe. Now, down the road, if everything's hunky-dory in 5 or 10 years, cameras could disappear. But right now, it helps with evidence gathering, as you would know, Mr. Goose, how police work goes, and that is why it's been requested, and our committee strongly voted to send that to you guys to make the final decision for that funding.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else?
Thank you for
Mr.
your time.
Robinson, no, hang on. Now, after all the time that you were asking for these LED lights, I'm glad that Mr. Denham from TECO was able to help you out and get it done quickly. I'd also like to thank you for being involved in the Taste of West Tampa. I know there were other council people here that went to that festival. It was great, and I'm sure it's going to grow.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr.
One other small note that I could use your help on, Chair Seastro, can you get FDOT to get that historic sign on the interstate? That's still an issue. They're getting our historic sign, say we're a National Historic District like they got at Ybor. They can double it up on another sign, make it brown. We are a National Historic District within the boundaries of the CRA. And we're being disrespected by not having that sign telling people, here it is. Get off the interstate, come down and check it out. And that's one of the things that we're going to be marketing and pushing forward with, but we need that sign. And we've been asking for it for going on now 6 years.
Yes, sir. Mr. Robinson, I'll keep poking the bear.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Councilman Goods.
Mr. Robinson, thank you for your service. I think the secretary is sitting 2 seats behind you, so I think they heard you kind of loud and clear. So I'm sure he's telling his people when he gets back to look into that. So I see him conversating. So we're glad you brought that up.
Let me add this. It's not FDOT's issue. It's the city of Tampa has to submit the documentation to FDOT to get it done. As far as trips, how many trips is there, how many cars, the city is missing supplying information because they're busy and may not be staffed enough to do it. But that's what's holding it up. That's what I was told.
It's our end.
It's on our end. That's why I'm asking our people, my representatives to ask the people that work for y'all to,
well, Mr. Bennett's here,
make it a priority,
Mr. Bennett's here, so maybe we can look into that and see what the process is. Mr. Bennett.
We'll have to watch out poking the bear. Mr. Bennett, if you want to briefly do that, because Board, I need to change some agenda items, so go ahead, Mr. Bennett.
No. Well, first, let's address 6 years for a sign's not acceptable. We need to get a sign out there as soon as possible. So we'll look into that immediately. Chairman, did you want to change?
Yes,
Your
and
order.
actually, because, speaking of FDOT, their PowerPoint presentation is not working properly. So if, without any objection, I'm hoping that we can move FDOT's report up to after we get done with Mr. Torito. Next. Is that all right with the board?
Second.
We have a motion to move up FDOT to the next agenda item. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, who is the maker of that motion?
Are you addressing that?
Goods, thank you. And the second,
I think Maniscalco.
thank you.
Can you just give it 1 second, Chief? Mr. Torito, can you come up to the lectern? Gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen in the audience and ladies and gentlemen on the TV viewing, Sal, is tomorrow your last day with us?
It is my last day with you, yes.
Sal, I have known you for 16 plus years. I thank you for the work that you have done. I thank you for giving me your inside knowledge for the city of Tampa, and you will be sorely missed. Please let us know where you go. Please come back and visit us.
I will do that.
Any other people on this board that would like to speak? Councilman Goods.
Well, Mr. Torito, it was a pleasure meeting you for the first time during the charter review. I thought you were upstanding attorney who kept the balance of the administration and the legislative branch when we asked questions on how the city should operate. Since that time, you've always still tried to keep a balance to be fair, to make sure that the both branches of power are equal. And I appreciate you for your work and all you have done. Many, I tell people, enjoy your retirement. That's the case. Enjoy your retirement because it's a wonderful thing to say I'm retired and to just be able to get up and go and do whatever you want to do when you get ready. So congratulations to you and best wishes to you, sir.
I'm sorry, Councilman VR.
Thank you, sir. Yes, Sal will certainly miss you. You know my sentiments about you. I think you're a good guy. A lot of times when you're in city council and public office, your personal life intertwines with your public duties, and we've spoken about both of them, and I've just learned that you're not just a fine lawyer, but also a very good human being. And I mean that, because we've spoken about a lot of personal things, and I just appreciate that. I just wanted to say that publicly. And also as an attorney myself, you're a good attorney, and you're a good individual, and you've always done a great job. So thank you for your work, and I mean that.
Thank you.
Councilman Miranda.
Sal, I know your name is Salvatore, but they call you Sal, and you've been around for a period of time where you always said the facts, and you backed up the facts. For instance, you always said you were the attorney for the government of the city of Tampa, not for the legislature and not for the administration. And you made it clear sometimes you have to say who you believe has the right to do something and the right not to do something. And that takes courage, because I understand that, sometimes you feel, not you, but the aura of power changes from time to time. And you never let that bother you. I think you've been through many administrations, maybe more than I have. And I appreciate it very much, your sincerity, your straightforwardness, and your application of the law at all times. I really appreciate knowing you. You're a great guy, and I thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Councilman Maniscalco.
Again, thank you for your many decades of service to the city of Tampa. We've had some fun conversations in the back. I didn't realize you were related to another Sal that I knew growing up. It's a small world, but that's Tampa. Everyone's usually related. But we sincerely appreciate you. Have always been very professional, accessible, and as Councilman Miranda says, you give the facts, and you stand for what's right, and that's it. So we'll miss you, and we appreciate your longtime service. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Digfelder.
Sal, they say in sports like tennis and all sports that you rise to the level of your opponent. And for whatever reason, you and I sometimes butt heads right here. And but I know that if I'm going to try and make my point and win that I better bring my A game, when you and I are button heads, because you are always on top of it. You know what you're talking about, and very often I end up agreeing with you. And and I'll miss you. I'll miss you. I miss I miss your intellect. I miss your devotion and loyalty to the city. And you're a good man. So best of luck down the road to you and your wife. I wish I had asked the clerk in advance or the historian of the city how many folks have been city attorney in this city, but I'm going to guess probably less than 20, 25 over 100 plus years, and you performed admirably during your time, not only as assistant city attorney in all the capacities that you served, but also as city attorney. You should be very proud. So thank you again for your service.
Thank you very much.
Councilman Carlson.
I just want to say thank you for your service and your long-time dedication to the city, and I hope you'll write a book about the things that are not attorney-client privilege, because you're a walking history book of what's happened in the city. So thank you.
Thank you.
Sal, again, I thank you for the many years and the things that you have taught me, but I'm going to warn you, be prepared for me to be calling you for your advice in the future.
I'm going to change my phone number.
Sal, I applaud you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Now go enjoy your
I'm
retirement.
gonna do
Unless
it.
you
Thank
have something you want to say
No,
to
no,
us.
I'm fine. It's been a long, I've enjoyed every minute of it. I've been here a long time. I don't know, for almost 50 years, but not quite. I've had the pleasure of working with many city councils, 8 different administrations. So I just want to thank you. And it's like everybody else, there's a time to move on, and this is my particular time. But I thank you for this.
Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sal. All right, we are going to move item 16, which is the FDOT report. If you could, please, would you like to come up? Because the PowerPoint presentation is not quite working at this, unless we do have it here.
You should be up. We had an embedded video which bogged it down, so that we worked with the IT department to get it switched.
Okay, so that video is not going to be there, but you still have your PowerPoint. Please
Yes, sir.
proceed.
Great. Yes, sir. Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for having us. So this is the Tampa Bay Next. We're doing an update of the program itself. A lot has changed since the last time we spoke, from our passionate conversation last time.
Can I please ask for your name?
Yes, sir. Marshall Hampton from the Florida Department of Transportation, District 7. So this is our north of I-275 north of downtown Tampa project. It's funded for fiscal year 21 all the way up to Hillsborough. So from north of the interchange up to Hillsborough, that's where we're putting additional general purpose lane, also some noise barriers. We are working on the SEIS, or the Supplemental Environmental Impact Statement. So that document is still underway. We are in talks with FHWA under their review, and they have it under their legal review now. We're looking to go to a public hearing early next year. As you found out last month, the governor announced that we have funding for the West Shore Area Interchange project, so $1.4 billion for fiscal year 24. That was great news. This is what the interchange looks like at State Road 60 near the West Shore Area Mall. It's a 4-level interchange with express lanes going through from Howard Franklin to downtown Tampa and up to the Veterans.
Spaghetti factory.
Will this stop? I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt
No,
you.
no, it's
Would
okay.
this stop me if I make the wrong connection coming out of the airport from going all the way across Howard Franklin and having to make a U-turn?
We will have many options for you to get to downtown
Thank you.
Tampa. Yes, sir. We'll have express lane also connection, direct connect to Himes Avenue, so you can get on or off the system. So this is going northbound 275 or eastbound. And then now you're going, connecting from Himes, going southbound towards West Shore area. So if you were traveling on 275, you still have the same access where you can go all the way through the downtown interchange or going to downtown Tampa. But also, if you're the express lane system, you can exit out of it in order to get to carry through to 275 or to I-4 connection. One difference is that we have a direct connect now to downtown Tampa, so you can stay in the express lane system from the airport or from Pinellas County and go straight into downtown Tampa. This is good for our rapid bus transit that we're working on, so premium transit. Going in the southbound direction, you could still carry the same movement. You'll have actually a couple more lanes. We have some weaving conditions we're trying to work through. And you're coming in from, or coming onto the system from downtown Tampa, it's the same access as well. If you want to jump into the express lane system, you will right after the actually on-ramp. And then you also, from the you will have a direct connect access into the express lane, so you don't have to weave through traffic. You can hop on the bridge to get over to the express lane system. For the downtown area interchange, one change from the last time we spoke is that we're keeping the Florida-Nebraska exit open. We heard the community, and we find that in the short term, it's viable to keep it open. So we're keeping the Florida-Nebraska on-ramp on 275 northbound and the off-ramp on 275 southbound open. And then we're moving to the 21st, 22nd Street exit to 14th, 15th. That way people have more access or more abilities to go either East Tampa, go to Ybor City, or carry over to 21st, 22nd. This is important because our modeling shows even if we kept that 21st, 22nd Street exit open, it's still the same amount of traffic that's going to it. So we're predicting 29,000 cars in a day going to 21st, 22nd. So by pushing it back to 14, 15, you'll help disperse the traffic more. For the westbound condition, again, we're showing Florida-Nebraska exit open. We are widening the ramp from 1 lane to 2 lane. And then if you stay in the leftmost lane, you can carry that all the way up to Hillsborough County, or Hillsborough Avenue. You don't have to merge over. If you stay in the right-hand lane, you have to exit to MLK. So improving weave conditions, and then now for the westbound I-4 to southbound 275, we're widening the shoulders and moving the exit, shifting the exit downstream so that you don't have 3 choices at the same time. It's similar to what we talked about last time. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Councilman Carlson.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to say thank you for listening to community feedback on Florida-Nebraska. I'm hearing a lot of negative feedback from Ybor and also East Tampa on the change in the exits on I-4 around that area. Is there any chance of switching it back?
Our plan is to stick with the 14-15 exit. So if the feedback is negative to 21st, 22nd, we just...
And I'm just going to join it because I've had a number of conversations with folks in East Tampa. David Gwynn, FDOT District Secretary. It's really in how we explain what we're doing. We're not removing anything from 21st and 22nd. The interchange is going to remain. You'll have full access to 21st, 22nd like you do today. When I went out and met with a number of the members of the community in East Tampa, including State Representative Hart, we met with other members in the community. One of the things we heard was in the past, they felt as if access had been taken away from the community at whether it had been when the connector came in, when we closed 40th, and that what they would like to have is not lose access. In fact, they'd like to, if they could gain additional access points, that would help perhaps draw businesses to the community. And so what we're doing is, if you picture how 21st and 22nd interchange is today, 3 of the 4 exit and entrance ramps will remain exactly the same. The ones that are, if you want to get on to go eastbound or westbound on I-4 from 21st, 22nd, you can. If you want to come westbound and get off at 21st and 22nd, you still will be able to. All we're doing is right now, if you come down 275 and you want to get off, if you come down 275 to go east on I-4 and you want to get off at 21st, 22nd, you've got to dive across all those lanes. We're bringing the lanes and putting a bridge to bring it to the outside. And then what we're doing is we're putting the first access point into East Tampa and Ybor City at 14th, 15th. But then we're constructing a 2-lane frontage road that goes all the way down to 21st, 22nd. So you'll not only have access to 21st, 22nd, you'll also have access to 14th and 15th. That along with keeping the Florida-Nebraska ramps open
is going to provide additional access points to the community. So really, I felt like it's really enhancing access overall. Some folks, I think, and we may not have explained it as well in the beginning, thought we were removing the 21st and 22nd Street and moving it to 14th, 15th. We're not at all. We're leaving 21st and 22nd. We're adding an access point at 14th and 15th, if that makes sense. And so far, I've gotten positive. I mean, if there's anybody from East Tampa that wanted to talk to me about concerns with it, I'd be glad to. But we've tried to reach out to as many folks as possible to see if that was an acceptable option.
Councilman VR.
Do you have a follow-up question
Yes.
on that?
Go
Go
ahead,
ahead,
Councilman
and then I
Davis.
can.
Mr. Secretary, let me say thank you for listening to the community in reference to Florida, Nebraska. You know, we had a sidebar conversation meeting in the library, and I think after that meeting, some other points were discussed with a few folks, and we were ready to get that done. So I commend you and your staff for working on that project. I think the problem with the 21st, 22nd, that people aren't educated to what you were saying in the beginning. I think now that's coming abroad now. I think, like I always said, we need to have a schematic diagram so people can understand it and put it in motion on a video so people can actually see that you're not taking that access point, because we always talking about depriving our communities to thrive. So I'm glad you're saying that, because I understood when you were saying, but like I always told you, you have to diagram it out in real time so people can actually see what you're talking about. And I think if you do that, the community will understand more, and I'm glad we're having these other conversations that we don't deprive the communities, the business communities, from access. So thank you for your leadership, sir.
Yeah, if I may.
Councilman Pierre.
And thank you very much for your presentation. I also want to remark on something that happened at the MPO recently when Commissioner Overman motioned to have negotiations with CSX and the CSX rail placed on our priority list for the LRTP. That's a big deal, and I think that's something that the community should be aware of, that City Council should be aware of. That's something where, I remember, Mr. Gwynn, when you were speaking at the last TIP hearing, you said, listen, y'all want mass transit? Let's put it on the list. And the MPO listened. Commissioner Overman, our friend who's doing such a great job, spoke up on it, and it unanimously passed. So I think that's a really, really big deal, in my opinion. It's something that's going to affect not only the CRA areas, but all the city of Tampa, and regionally as well. It was discussed at length in the TMA meeting, I think it was last Friday, so we're trying to get that as well as on our priority recommended formal list. And call me naive, but I'm optimistic. So I just wanted to mention that, because that's a really big deal, I think, that we're pushing forward, and I have a good feeling we'll all do it together. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Dickfelder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us today. Couple of things. In regard to coming down South 275 and then getting off in Ybor, that's great. It just so happened like 2 nights ago I was doing that with my wife, and we were coming down 275, and I forgot how quickly it came over. And next thing I know, I'm darting across 3 lanes of traffic to get off at 21st Street over there, and she's like, "What are you doing, you crazy driver?" So anyway, so we definitely appreciate that, and I think that's a good improvement. As I look through all these, I think they're, from what I can see, I mean, nothing's perfect, and we're chasing the train after 40, 50 years of interstate building, but I think a lot of these tweaks are really good for our community. I did have a question. When I get on at Armenia and I need to go north on 275, I do have to get across several lanes of traffic to make sure that by the time I hit downtown, I'm in one of the 2 left lanes. Is that going to change at all, or?
No, sir.
Okay.
I think we would have had to made more extensive changes to the downtown interchange. What we try to do is get all the improvements back before, right near the river, except for the express lanes in and out of downtown. And that primarily was to keep the number of parcels, properties that we would impact down. And it's not perfect. The downtown interchange is not going to be operating perfectly, but we thought it was a good compromise working with the community between impacts and to traffic and impacts to the community.
Can we still call it Malfunction Junction?
I don't think I can stop that.
All right, and then lastly, on a very serious note, I'm not on the MPO. I'd like to be again someday, but I've been in other cities with these express lanes. I think they seem to work okay. I think y'all are building in Orlando. I think y'all are building them up there just to zip traffic through. It's a slow process to build them, but I think you're getting there. But what I didn't hear about, what I heard about in the past, was tolls. Are we just talking about express lanes, or is there tolls hidden in there? And if there is, then we need to have a longer discussion.
Well, yeah, well, two things, I guess. One, the concept that we've had all along has been that the express lanes will be dynamically tolled. It's in every MPO document. It's been in every presentation we've done for probably close to 10 years. But the reason to do dynamic tolling is not to raise revenue. It's not a point that we want to make money and use that as a reason. The reason that we do that is because we agree with, there's a lot of folks that say, you know, if you just make all lanes free, you're going to induce more demand and everything's going to be congested. What we're saying is that the dynamic tolling is a tool that can be used to manage congestion during certain periods of time. So in the morning peak hour, the afternoon peak hour, when we probably are going to have our most congested times, using dynamic tolling provides for a corridor within the congested environment to allow for vehicles to go at speeds that are reliable travel time. Now, some people say, well, only people that can afford to use that are going to jump in those lanes. Well, two things. One, those people are jumping out of the other lanes, so they're not going to be in the other general purpose lanes is one. Secondly, that also can be used as an express bus corridor, and that is extremely successful right now in South Florida. They actually have as many people running on the express lane express buses in South Florida, actually have more than use Sunrail in Orlando. That's how successful it's been. And in fact, the thing that's constrained them is they didn't have enough parking at the park and ride lots, or more people would use it. So now they're expanding their parking in those areas. It provides that congested relief within the corridor. If you look at the projected traffic volumes based on the land uses that have been approved, that are in the models, that we don't create these models, land use is not DOT, that's done by the locals. We're going to have almost 50% more traffic on our roads within the next 20 years. 50% more than we have today, and it's already congested. So you can imagine we need to have that corridor within. Now, what I will say...
Well, let me
if I could just mention real quickly on the tolling side, we can change that at some point in the future if it makes sense. There may be a time where we say that, you know, the dynamic tolling is not the right tool. It may be that we want to say we're going to use just a fixed toll or no toll, or we may want to say use at some point in the future maybe autonomous or connected vehicles use those lanes so we can really increase capacity if all the vehicles in there are connected or autonomous. There's lots of tools. This is just what we're looking at now. But I want to make it very clear, though, we didn't hide anything. There was never any hidden agenda to say, and we sprung tolls out at the last minute. This was presented for years.
Well, and I'm not saying you're hiding it, but I didn't see it in the presentation, which...
Yeah, okay. We can make sure we add those in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think if it's there, it's there, and I think at least the community should know about it. We should talk about it. I do recall when I was on the MPO probably 14, 15 years ago that I spoke very vocally against the, as they call them, Lexus lanes and tolling. I understand you guys want to move vehicles, and you see this as a tool. Well, if you gave out, let's say, 10 tokens in the beginning of the month to everybody who's out there driving, so everybody starts on the same footing, okay, and everybody can decide when they want to use those 10 tokens. And you know, and then so you know, certain days I want to get in that express lane, I use a token. But in this case, the token is real dollars, and that's when it gets uneven because some people have them and some people don't, and I don't think that's right, and that's why I've always been opposed to them. And I don't know. I just think that perhaps we can, especially in this age of technology, you know, maybe we can give people tokens. Maybe we can, you know, tag cars and you know, that sort of thing like we do with the regular toll roads.
Well, we also can
to give
allow
people opportunity. You get 6 shots a month on this express lane, and that's it. but it doesn't necessarily cost you anything.
We can allow things like, in South Florida, we allow carpools to use those lanes for free. There's other types of services that can use it for free. I guess what I'm saying is that, first of all, it's gonna be probably, through the West Shore interchange, it's gonna be probably 8 years from now before we're open and operating express lanes, because it's not gonna start the project for another 3 to 4 years, and it's probably a 4 to 5 year project to build it out. By then, who knows what technology is going to look like? Who knows what options we'll have? So it's not set in stone. It's as easy as flipping a switch. We're saying it's dynamically tolled, and part of that is we have to prove to the Federal Highway Administration, because most of this is federal money, that the system will work. And this is one of the ways is similar to how the airline industry works. A lot of private businesses work. In higher demand, you charge maybe more. In lower demand, you charge less. Maybe times of the day we charge nothing. And so it's a management tool is all it is.
Okay, Councilman Miranda.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, sir, for being straightforward and saying it like it is. In fact, you answered some of the questions I was going to ask when you started saying about 20 years from now and so forth, so on. So what we're looking at is a fix of a problem for how many years before it becomes another fix. In other words, I hate to be in your shoes, because instead of being proactive, you got to be reactive, because when you finish it, it's already population's increased by whatever amount, and it becomes somewhat antiquated. So I appreciate what you're saying. Is there any time in your lifetime or ours that you think that the express system is not going to be any larger in the next 30 years? I don't think so. I'm answering for myself.
Right.
Because we are educating ourselves at the time that everybody has a car, and humans are creatures of habit. In other words, we see cars when we're small and everybody's driving a car, and the next thing you know, when you get to the point where you can afford the insurance, not the car, the insurance, you buy a car. And when that happens, you got another car on the expressway. And it's going to be very difficult to change the mindset of the young people in this country, because the young become the drivers, they become the leaders, they become the cycle of life. So we never have tried, I don't know if we tried going to the elementary schools and teaching the kids something through education, what is needed to stop the congestion that we have in this country and the emissions of carbons and so forth and so on, so you can have cleaner air. I was watching what's happening in New Delhi the other day. It's unbelievable. But what happens there is going to happen somewhere else here in this country. It has to, because we're getting to that point. Los Angeles maybe got that problem. But we're getting close to that. And it's something that we cannot avoid. So I don't know how to solve that. That's the position that you gentlemen are in, ladies are in that department. I'm not smart enough to be in the MPO, smart enough to do what you're doing. But what I'm saying is, I think that once they become a car driver, you lost all control.
Yeah.
It has to be before. And going back, being of age has advantages sometimes. And I remember everybody in the neighborhood rode a bus. And then I realized everybody had the same income. We didn't have the money to pay the insurance. We could buy a car for $100 or $200. We couldn't afford the insurance, so we rode the bus. And today's society has changed. I hope everybody has an opportunity to own a car whenever they want. But how are we going to change the thoughtfulness of those individuals, her and he, that want to buy a car as soon as they turn 16 or 17 or 18? And how do you get that person to ride a bus? That's going to be very, very difficult, because what they see and what they hear is the opposite, and they're confused.
Well, and we are trying to work with schools to educate them on a lot of things, and also interest them perhaps in entering our industry, which is kind of shrinking in terms of people going into it. I think there is some changes that are occurring. I can tell you the biggest thing that controls traffic is land use. If you approve land use, roads don't generate traffic, land use does. You build homes, and so how you manage that, which the counties and the cities and all handle the management of land use decisions, certainly have a lot of impact on how the transportation system will work. Having, two things from what I hear dictate whether people will use transit. One is it reliable, and is it frequent? In other words, can I count on it being at the bus stop when I'm going to be there, or I'm going to have to wait a half hour? And two, when I need to go home or I need to go somewhere else, is it going to be quick, or am I going to have to wait an hour or two? And so once our transit system, I think, gets up and running, and hopefully with the new money that will be poured into it, if it becomes reliable, predictable, and then we can start to have, I think, a bigger discussion about how do we manage traffic.
And one more item. If you live where you work, it stops people from driving on the expressway.
And more people
That's
are
more
actually
important
working from
because-
home.
Well, they want to blame everything on the expressways for killing Ybor City. It's a component, but it's not the total thing. When all the cigar workers lost their jobs because of the factories and American Can and Continental Can, they all lived in the neighborhood just about. Then they went somewhere else. And that's what happened, part of it. You guys helped out at the end, but they were the start. Thank you very much.
Councilman Goose.
Mr. Circuit, while I still have you, so I can make sure we have an understanding about the historical district sign, can you explain what that criteria is? Is there so many trips on that interstate to designate that? What is the qualifications to make sure Mr. Bennett knows and make sure we got everything flowing to get this done, if we can get it done for West Tampa?
Right. So we get tons of requests for signage on the interstate all the time. And I'm not saying that to say that this isn't a good request. Not at all, Joe. And I've talked to Joe about this. But we get lots of requests. So we have to have criteria so that we don't have thousands of signs all over the interstate that aren't, because the more signs you put up, the less effective the ones that are up are going to be. And we don't want to overload the driver's distraction. So there are requirements for the historic district. I think it has to do with a certain number of trips and things like that. I don't know them by heart. But, and we can work with it. But the application has to come in with the data that we need in order, and it's actually stuff that I have to get approved through Tallahassee, because on the interstate, they manage that. But I think we can work with it. We just need to get the application in, get all the information about the historic district and why the sign meets the criteria for the signs. And we'll work to try to get it. If there's any possible way we can get it through, we'll work to do it.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Appreciate you.
Councilman Maniscalco.
Thank you very much. Councilman Moreno brought up a lot of good points. One being, the psychology of the how do you convince people to leave their cars and move to a mass transit system or alternative system? And they did that after World War II when they pulled up the streetcars and went to the bus service and built the highways and whatnot. And, why not have the freedom of the automobile instead of having to wait for that outdated streetcar, was the mindset at the time. But, Ybor City was brought up, and that's a perfect example of a live-work-play environment of the time. It had the streetcar on 7th Avenue. People lived in that neighborhood. They worked in that neighborhood. They had a store downstairs and lived upstairs. But you had mentioned land use. And Hillsborough County, at the county commission, they always talk about sprawl. And you drive a half hour through Hillsborough County, and you're still in Hillsborough County. I mean, it's unbelievable when you come from 75 from the south going north, entering Hillsborough County, and it still takes you a half hour without traffic to get to downtown Tampa. So, the younger generations, my generation, I think we've been very vocal, not just with the whole no TBX and no express lanes and whatnot, but the discussion of CSX, the discussion of looking at light rail, the discussion of better planning when we build. I've never, maybe since I've been here, but everybody's an urban planner, and what do you study in school? And I study design and neighborhoods and how things are laid out. And I admire those folks because young people take an interest in how their community is built and what we do and how it affects the next generations and whatnot. But, I have to ask the question as well, how much longer are we going to keep widening and fixing the interstate and accommodating the new people in the traffic? I think in the last 10 years, I think our population has risen almost 55,000 people have come to this city, almost 60,000, something like that. And when I go out, I go to these busy places and I don't recognize anybody. It's a lot of new people and whatnot. And a lot of people will say, especially in this area, we want to live downtown. We want to live, near where we work. We use a scooter. We use the Uber. A lot of people choose not to have a car, but then the general population needs that car. You talk to my parents, you talk to my family members, and they couldn't imagine not having a car and having to use the bus because the convenience and the timing and whatnot. So, I don't know what's going to happen with All for Transportation and all this other stuff that's tied up in litigation. I hope it moves forward in our favor because we can have that funding. Speaking with you and the previous district secretary, it was all about the money. We can have that money. We can look at, All for Transportation and whatnot. If it moves forward, we can look at expanding the streetcar. We can look at light rail. We can look at a lot of other things instead of we have to fix Malfunction Junction. We have to fix what's going on at 60 and in the West Shore area there, the interchange. But I hope that, and I'm not trying to be a European model or look at the Japanese models of high-speed trains and whatnot, but that we look at different alternatives, because it's not always about road widening. And Ybor City again was brought up with what caused that change there and in West Tampa. And a gentleman I spoke to who's in his 90s now, he said, we left after World War II, after Korea. We left because we were looking for a better life, not because the interstate came through, but because we wanted better. We wanted to move up in the world. And they moved to Davis Islands, they moved to Brandon, they moved to Seminole Heights, they moved wherever, because they wanted a newer and better house. It's old. Something Mayor Dick Greco told me one time. I said, you were mayor during urban renewal. The city of Tampa had an urban renewal office until 1974. He was mayor from 67 to 74. And I said, how could you demolish this and that and all these historic structures? It's Art Deco, it's Beaux Arts, it's all this beautiful architecture that we couldn't even afford to build today. And he said, there was no historic preservation. It was old, and we needed a parking lot. Or it was, the road was coming through, or the highway was coming through. So going back to that 90-something-year-old man, he said, we came back to Ybor City and all our old neighborhoods 50, 40 years later, and we get emotional and we cry and we go, well, what happened? And the answer is we happened. Things changed. We moved out, and now we come back and we say, everything is different as it once was. So you can't always just blame FDOT and the interstate coming through. It's a lot of factors, social factors and whatnot. But I hope moving forward we can look at alternative methods of transportation instead of just, we have to accommodate the automobile traffic.
No, we certainly will.
Yeah.
We certainly will, and we're more than willing to work with the folks that want to look at a rail project, to look at expanding bus rapid transit systems. We're already funding a lot of those studies and moving forward as it is. So we're not just Department of Roads. Roads are one part. I don't think you'll ever see the West Shore interchange in that area be improved again. That's about all you're ever going to get.
Yeah.
But when you got the airport that's predicting twice the number of cars in and out of it every day in 20 years, the port, with more people moving here, we got 150 people a day moving into Hillsborough County. They got to get stuff brought, that they buy at the store or get delivered to their house. A lot of that comes into port, the airport, trucks. So it's not just the passenger cars. We got the freight movement, everything. If we're going to be an economically growing community, we need a lot of that. So roads will always be a part of it. But if you look at any city that has a great transit system, the traffic usually is pretty bad as well. So,
but they have all the other alternatives.
But you have the options. That's what I'm saying. Over time, we have to introduce those options so we don't have to necessarily do as much road improvement. We can invest in other systems.
We have to diversify and look at all the different options. And we changed the psychology once after World War II when all this happened. I think we can change it again as younger people, newer folks come here and they say, we want something better. But you are looking at the options. We, as members of the MPO or city council, in whatever capacity, we're looking at the bigger picture, not just saying, fix the road, widen the road. There's more science to it.
Right.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Gwynn, any other questions, any other comments? Mr. Gwynn, I just simply have 4 requests from you, if you would. Diagrams. Councilman Goods had mentioned that earlier.
Okay.
Who controls the cleanup of junk, trash, and debris of all the on-ramps and off-ramps within the city limits of Tampa?
I do.
I have constituents calling me saying that after a rain, all the grates are full of plastic bottles and whatnot. Hang on. They call me up and say that there is beds on these there's toilets, there's all these certain things on. I just want to know who I have to call to make sure that those things get cleaned. You don't need to answer me, I'm just requesting.
Yeah.
Who controls, who do we as a council call to make sure they get cleaned up? Number 2, I'd like to have a diagram of all the right-of-ways that FDOT owns within the city limits.
Okay.
Number 3, now that we have chiseled away at that plan from 1995 and our interstate system within the city limits of Tampa, now when can we start thinking about that first leg of light rail from the airport to downtown, with stops at West Shore, Lois, Dale Mabry, Himes, and Armenia, so that people that live in West Tampa, North Hyde Park, who work downtown, don't have to use a car. Simply put, Mr. Gwynn, It's not the citizens of Tampa that are causing the problems on our interstates within the city limits. It's the 100,000 plus people that drive into our downtown corridor every day, coming from Polk, Pasco, Pinellas, Manatee, Sarasota, that travel I-4, 275, Veterans, and the Leroy Selman, and every bridge that crosses the bay. If we could take 1/3 of those people off the road and give them public mass transportation, the citizens of Tampa wouldn't be complaining about our traffic. Mr. Quinn, I thank you for being here today. I look forward to your next report next month. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chief, are you ready to start up again? Thank you, members of the audience, for letting us move that forward.
So if it's a pleasure of the board, we'll move on to the CRA monthly activity reports by each respective CRA manager. We have the PowerPoint up. And just a side note that Manager Rob Rosner is out of the country traveling for business, so his section will be reported by a fellow manager. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Connor.
Good morning, Malcolm Kiner, City of Tampa staff. Can we forward the slide, have the presentation? Okay, can you all see do you all have the presentation?
Yes,
up?
sir.
Okay, it's not showing to the audience. So, thank you, Mr. Robinson. He provided the update of West Tampa. There's just one additional thing I'd like to add. In West Tampa, you all will be receiving an invitation from Rebuilding Together Tampa Bay. They wanted to be here today, but this is the week of their national conference. They have received a grant from a private company to do up to $30,000 of renovation work at Ray Park off of Howard, which is within the West Tampa CRA district. They want to make sure they invite all of you to the event they're going to have on December 7th. They are going to be doing interior painting. They're going to be building a small stage for the kids. They're going to be installing a flat panel TV and console with video games, new furniture, a new computer area. They're going to improve the reception area. They're also going to renovate the weight gym, add a new floor, paint the weight gym. They're going to make kitchen upgrades by adding new stainless steel appliances, and they're going to paint the concession stand, which is in the rear of the property. So we want to promote this. This is at no expense to the CRA or to the city's Parks Department. So moving forward to Drew Park, the Tampa Bay Linear Park, they have began mobilization on the construction of that park along Tampa Bay Boulevard. We also have worked with contract admin to finalize the selection of a professional service firm to update our strategic action plan that will be coming to this body for approval in the coming months. Our facade grant program is active. We are taking applications, as well as our fencing grant program. The indirect activities, as stated last month, HCC completed their new Allied Health building. The Stadium Center project, which is a really large redevelopment project along Del Mabry, is under construction. And across from Drew Park, the CAE building is preparing for a $40 million construction of a facility there that we're hopeful that those employees will utilize the businesses in Drew Park. So notable events, the All Art Studio held a ribbon cutting last month. This facility will operate as a multi-purpose arts magnet that can house art exhibits, plays or concerts, or banquets. And so we're really proud to have this in Drew Park. So with that being said, I will pass it on to my colleague for Ebor's report, unless there are any questions.
Do we have any questions?
Question referring to Drew Park. Brother Conn, that's the only one that's not in my district. But I want to know how is the participation now?
We need members. So we have 11 CAC seats for Drew Park. Right now, we currently have 6 active members on that board. So we have 5 vacancies. If one of those 6 cannot make it to the meeting, and obviously they're volunteers, then we don't have a quorum. So Councilman Dingfelder did at the last meeting take me to the side and asked me to provide him with some information on businesses and folks in the district that have received facade grants. I have that information for the board. If there's anyone or anybody that you would like for me to contact Our
Let me-
current members are working on recruiting. We're working on recruiting. It's listed on our website, but we just don't have that participation right now.
Do you believe in time that number needs to change?
You know, I'm not certain. I think 11 is a good number. I think we need to do a better, myself included, better job of outreach and trying to recruit. But they did, Drew Park had a very large-scale streetscape project and stormwater project where they redid Lois Avenue as well as Grady Avenue, and that alleviated the flooding in the area. That was a huge concern for the businesses and the folks that lived in that area. Once that kind of got improved,
The interest drew down.
the interest waned. Now, I have heard recently from a former CAC member that plans to apply, but again, we still have 5 vacancies.
Have you come up with any ideas that might lure some prospective people to be involved? I know it's volunteer, and some people just, have limited time, or some just don't like to be involved because they feel that it's too much pressure. But have you come up with any kind of ideas you think that might can dwindle some people that would be able to get that thing moving?
Well, we've reached out to several. We've had several that have shown interest. Some have even turned in an application but then changed their mind. I'm open to listening and receiving feedback from the board and from anybody that may have some ideas on how we can do that outreach. But again, like you said, they're volunteers, and sometimes our process, it moves slow. So we had one member who was an officer at College Hunks Moving, and he basically said he was going to resign because it kind of moved a little bit too slow for him, and he was busy.
Well, thank you for your honesty and your leadership.
Mr. Kiner, Mr. Dingfelder.
No, I didn't want to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
In regard to I know it's an agenda item, several places on the agenda today, and Mr. Robinson mentioned it earlier, on the 4 cameras, okay, and you and I spoke about them another time. I'm in favor of the 4 cameras. I think we could, have 20 cameras and really help a lot of areas around town that are high crime or having issues anyway. But in regard, and Mr. Bennett, maybe this is toward you as well and your connection with TPD. The statement was made that TPD would be monitoring, and I guess I need to know a little bit more about what your conversation. And I don't want to give up any
fine.
Security secrets, because I'm cognizant of that as well. But I'd like to explore that a little bit more in terms of what is TPD assuring us. The reason I say that is I think the city had cameras in Ybor City a long time ago. People said there wasn't enough manpower, person power at TPD to monitor them, and then ultimately the cameras, I guess, went away. So that's question number one is the monitoring just going to be certain times of day and that sort of thing from TPD? And John, you can help us with that as well. And then the other question is, and I poked at you on this as well, is facial recognition. I hope that is not necessarily part of this camera program, because that came up in Ybor when cameras were proposed in Ybor many years ago, and it's very controversial. So
obviously, John Bennett, Chief of Staff, I'm not going to speak for Chief Dugan and his operations. However, there's just 2 concepts and then one answer to your question. So there's obviously real-time, a lot of agencies are going to real-time crime centers. And cameras in public spaces are being monitored regularly or at least situationally, depending on the ebb and flow of the data and the situational crimes that occur. And then there are situational reviews where the agency may be given access by a business or a nonprofit or whatever, and that way if they do get a call, they can have access, but it's not real-time access. Those are typically the 2 models out there. The relationship that TPD uses in their real-time crime center, I would suggest reaching out to Chief Dugan and maybe get a tour and get a firsthand understanding of what the real-time crime center does that they're able to show without any security breaches. But the second thing is, and I was here way back when that first generation, if you will, of facial recognition in the Super Bowl was coming to Tampa, and it was kind of exploratory, much like we're heading into the 5G now for the next Super Bowl. So technology evolves. But there's none that I'm aware of. There was none while I was here. There's none that I'm aware of now of any facial recognition capacity or capabilities inside the Tampa technology system.
thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anyone else? Councilman Carlson.
Chief Bennett, just maybe we can discuss this when it gets to the item later, but last week in City Council, we had the drone issue come up, and then since then, I've gotten 30 or 40 emails from people who are against it. And I remember the controversy about the facial recognition years ago. I wish, not making a motion, but I wish we could have some kind of engagement with the community regarding technology, police use of technology. I know the PBA also has concerns about how technology is used from their perspective, but I wish we could have a larger engagement about it so that we don't have to answer questions one-off on individual technology issues, so that people are assured that these things are not going to be used for typical surveillance or thought crimes or whatever.
Yeah, and I think it's an excellent point. There's 2 venues that I could see now, possibly more. But the police department holds a citizens academy, so you could get folks from the community to understand all the aspects of their operation, including the supporting technologies, and then they could retweet those to the community. The other would be to bring in a technology, or at least a growing technology program within the mayor's university program. So the community sees everything that's going on, especially in the trending aspects of that. But standing up a drone program in Pinellas County underneath the hazardous materials, it's really designed for lowering the overhead and the costs relating to using helicopters for responsive scenarios, not proactive scenarios.
This, and I'll shut up after this, but it also continues on to, I think Amazon through their Ring technology has been doing deals with police departments, and so there are concerns about police monitoring people who are not committing crimes or are not suspects in crimes. Right. And I support the police in trying to make sure that we don't have crimes, and we need to solve the West Tampa issue, but there are also civil rights concerns that I wish we could address in some kind of forum. So maybe we can talk about offline and propose.
We can, and just know that, and I've been talking to the police legal side for years, as we grow through these technology iterations, that we work on making sure we have transparent privacy policies about the use of these technologies, but they're all in the reactive realm. There's not that proactive doorbell or proactive drone use. That's just not the way police departments, at least what we're accustomed to here, the way they operate.
Mr. Bennett, Mr. Carlson, to your point, I believe the motion last week was made that when I amended the motion that to have the police communication and the city's communication director get together to inform the community about these drones and to inform about the Tampa Police Department's policies and procedures as it relates to these drones, so the community can be aware of what they're doing for the transparency. So I remember that motion being made last week, so that should be forthcoming before those drones are even put up in the air, that the community is aware of what's going on, when they're going to be utilized, and how and why they're being utilized.
If I may, thank you, gentlemen. If I may add also, Chief, if you could provide something for cost effectiveness for these drones as opposed to the helicopter at that meeting, I would greatly appreciate it. Mr. Kiner, all you have to do is shake your head yes or no. Are you going to give a report for Mr. Rosner?
I am.
Okay, thank you very much. Chief, do we have Ybor City? Is Ms. Thrower here?
Yes. Karina's as well.
Please, proceed, Ms. Orr.
So we had a very active month of October in Ybor City. Some of those things include the board meeting. We had a very well-attended board meeting, covered highlights like the marketing, public relations, social media report that was given by our contractor, HCP and Associates. We had a presentation given by TICO in regard to the 7th Avenue illuminated archway light project that we anticipate starting sometime in early 2020. We also were provided an update by the hotel manager that was recently hired for the Ybor Hotel that we have heard is on schedule and will be planned to open in March. We are, for the first time, coordinating a YCDC board member orientation. We've not done this before, but we think it's a great way to onboard our new board members in regard to the 3 committees that we have and how the board operates. We do have a larger orientation that the city provides for our CAC members. However, we're trying to onboard our YCDC board members with a good intro education on all the things that we do at the YCDC. We're excited that we have Copper Shaker opening, hopefully in the next few months. The Copper Shaker is a restaurant/bar that is operating in St. Pete successfully, and the three partners decided to open up a second location in Ybor City on 7th Avenue, 7th and 15th. We distributed the fall edition of the Ybor Legend newsletter, so we use that as a communication tool to the community and to you as far as what's going on regarding economic development. We've hosted some professional walking tours of the district. While we were hosting the Florida Redevelopment Association conference, we gave a tour to about 55 of those members, and then also provided a professional tour to about that many yesterday. So, we're excited that our charm of Ybor City is very popular, and people want to learn about its history and see the beauty of Ybor. We are always coordinating with solid waste and other departments. We had our YES team is actively cleaning the district on a daily basis, and we work with solid waste practically daily as well to coordinate any necessary cleanups. And as we get ready to embark on the big parade season in Ybor, we have to really engage with solid waste and the YES team to make sure that we're all on the same page. Other things that we've done in the district include the high pressure washing on 7th and 8th Avenues to keep 7th Avenue looking nice. And then there was a water pipe break, so that was an emergency repair that we coordinated. Bike rack installations on 7th Avenue whenever requested. Just a variety of things that you can see listed out there that we work with many departments to keep Ybor looking nice. Based on a former motion about the historic preservation grant funding for the facade program, we did discuss that in November, and the Planning, Infrastructure, and Economic Development Committee did determine that we'll draft a letter, get approval by the board, and then submit that to you after the November 26th board meeting. Let's see, we take a lot of feedback from the community, and one of those concerns was at East Palm Avenue when you're turning northbound onto 22nd Street. The community had witnessed some collisions there, so we worked with the City of Transportation Department, Smart Mobility Division, to emphasize the need for some safety measures to be taken at that intersection, and so they've agreed to put that on their list of things to do very soon in Ybor to better define the lanes as people turn from going eastward on Palm Avenue onto 22nd. The people were kind of colliding, so they were going to better define those turning lanes to avoid collision. We stay very engaged with our special events department. We hold pre-planning meetings with the promoters of the events that are held in Ybor City. And some of those that are coming up, one next week, you can already see the tree has been put in Centro Ybor. So we have our holiday swags hanging on our 5 globe lamppost already. Our tree is up. And the holiday tree lighting is November 20th, which is next Wednesday. The pre-show starts at 6 o'clock, and the lighting will happen around 7. So please attend if your schedule allows. And then Snow on 7th, a very popular parade in Ybor, is December the 14th. A few other Cigar Heritage Festival, Jingle Bell Bazaar, and then, of course, the Outback Bull Parade on New Year's Eve. We are working with the Housing and Community Development Rehabilitation, with the Housing Department on that rehabilitation program as far as finding a way to fund, as East Tampa has, put some additional funding into that program for Ybor residents to rehabilitate their homes. So we'll have to allocate monies, and we'll be coming to the board soon to allocate funds from another line item into this program to make that funding more robust. And we're happy that the Entrepreneur Collaborative Center is going to actually stay in Ybor City. They've put out an RFP recently to have developers respond to Hillsborough County in regard to building a new center for their Entrepreneur Collaborative Center that also will house the Sheriff's Training Center, History and Genealogy Library, and they're possibly trying to incorporate affordable housing into that project. So we did provide some developer information to Hillsborough County's procurement department so that those who are very familiar with developing an EBOR and working with the Barrio Latino Commission can respond to that RFP. Some of the notable events we did accept at the 2019 Florida Redevelopment Association conference. We accepted a statewide award for our marketing efforts with HCP and Associates. I don't know where to hook them. I'll tell you what. So we're honored to have been selected to win that statewide award for our efforts in all the marketing that we do. And also the second award we won for the Planning Commission's Annual Planning and Design Award for Community Engagement. So we stay very connected to our community and inform them through all the communication efforts like the Legend newsletter I mentioned earlier, the Flash. So we stay very connected.
Is Brenda like Vanna White going to stand up there?
Chairman Citro attended with us the TPD's award ceremony that offered a very well-known and respected EBOR partner officer, Richard Mercado. He received the Excellent Duty Award, so we were very proud of him, and we attended that to support him. And some of the new businesses that have come into the district recently are Tucker Hall, Chill Brothers, an ice cream shop, Do Really Inspirational Projects, which is a pottery creation shop, Ybor City Beverage Company, and Sushi House, which is adjacent to Centennial Park, is doing well enough that they've expanded to the casita right next door to them with a slightly different concept, and it's called The Garden. And that ends my report.
Councilman Goods.
Well, I'd like to say congratulations. I attended several of the award ceremonies and was glad to be invited to them. I would like to say I'm glad to see that Chief Bennett has come aboard and did listen to what I talked about, a plan of all the CRAs coming together with those ideas. Because when I look at the ideas that Mr. Connor just put on, Mr. Robinson, some of them came out of the East, started in the East. So I'm glad that we're now meeting. I don't know how often we're going to meet, but I'm hoping that when we get a new person on board, we designate a time that we're going to meet every time to bring these ideas to help everybody prosper. And I think that's the key. But one notable thing I did see is the training. I think that's key. A lack of training is not happening with the CAC boards. People that are coming on need to know the responsibility on the board. They need to know their duties and responsibility and how it operates. I'm glad to see you doing that, but I think that in the next phase of where we get on board or whatever next meetings come up, maybe Chief can start orchestrating that to get it together, because I think that is key so the community knows what the responsibility is of a CRA, a CAC board member. I think that's crucial. And I sat on a CAC board and didn't get that kind of training. So I can see how somebody coming on board doesn't really know their responsibility. They're just there and don't understand what voting rights are, don't understand when you can abstain and when you can't abstain from a vote, when you can do this, when you can do that. So I think that going forward, hope Chief you'll orchestrate that soon to get that procedure quickly, because I think that's very key to having strong CAC boards when you know what's going on and how to implement procedures and how to implement projects. I think that's crucial. So I'm glad to see that on board, and hopefully Chief will get that implemented soon, rather than later.
Okay. In regard to the CAC chairs and members or CRA managers meeting, we're doing that on a quarterly basis. And so we did it in October, and we're doing one in East Tampa in January. So we'll do that quarterly.
Thank you.
Any other council members? Ms. Ord and Ms. Thrower, I congratulate you on your wonderful awards that you and the YCDC have won. I'm very proud of you, and I thank you for allowing me to be there to accept these awards on behalf of the CRA board. Thank you.
Yes, and thank you for those who did attend with us and accepted and took a picture with us on stage.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and board members. Ed Johnson, East Tampa CRA Manager. Our report for this month includes under direct CRA activities, we developed the Affordable Housing Rehabilitation Assistance Program, which you've heard others talk about earlier. The CAC approved leveraging funding of about $500,000 in conjunction with our Housing and Community Development Division's already existing housing rehabilitation existing program for FY 2020. The goal here is to assist approximately 30 individuals at a maximum of $15,000 per applicant. And of course, the CRA board approved that request last month in October. Secondly, we developed the Affordable Housing Down Payment Assistance Program. Our CAC there again approved $400,000 to create this program to assist the Homebuyers Education Assistance Program and Homebuyers Education Workshop course. And this program for us is we feel is very instrumental in keeping people that make the decision to go towards home ownership to be able to stay in their homes. Be able to get the kind of knowledge that Councilman Goods always talks about is knowledge is power. If they don't know, they don't know. And this particular program is a 32-hour program at all, 16 hours of pre-education and 16 hours of post-education, post-purchase education. So we think that going through these lengthier programs really cements what homeownership responsibilities are all about. Next up on the line was the RFP for the mixed-use development concepts for our vacant infill properties. As you recall, the CAC issued an RFP some months ago to those interested developers and contractors to propose potential mixed-use development concepts using the 26 vacant lots, infill lots. Unfortunately, this particular item that I have before you this morning, we had to make some adjustments. So the process is going to continue. We had one of our members that made the decision to remove herself from the review committee. So we're having to retabulate the scores without her scores being included, and then going back out to establish a new presentation concept. And during this process, we've also agreed that we're going to take presentations from all 10 presenters. We had 10 presentations that were submitted to this RFP. Originally, we were going to shortlisted 8 firms, so now this decision was made. We're going to go and interview all 10 of the presentations in the future. So we're going to have to stay tuned to see when we can get this back on track again for the presentations to take place. Next up on the list is our RFQ for our East Tampa Strategic Action Plan update. That RFQ for interested consultants to update the Strategic Action Plan. The submittals came in September. We had 4 firms that were shortlisted, and that presentation for those 4 shortlisted firms will actually take place tomorrow morning. And so we'll make the announcement as soon as possible after that, after the presentations tomorrow.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
who's selecting those firms? And I know it's been a long process, and I don't understand why it's taking so long. So, but it's here now. So, who's a part of selecting who's going to be the firm for the strategic action plan?
That's through the city's CC&A process. So that's the collective, or the competitive collective system that we have within the city. So there is an internal committee that sits that reviewed with participation from the community. We had 2 members from our East Tampa CRA that actually sat on the review committee that made recommendations. So now those recommendations were submitted to the CCNA committee, and the committee made determination that they were going to interview the top 4 responders. And that's what's being presented tomorrow morning in personal presentations.
Thank you, sir.
Next up on the list is the Commercial Facade Grant Program. In East Tampa, we've had 27 grants approved for a total of $862,000 in grant funding over the years, leveraging a little over $3 million in private investment. Of course, that program was started in East Tampa. Again, a lot of these programs actually got their start, that others are doing, got their start in East Tampa. And that program was approved back in November of 2009, and it's still surviving. The next one is neighborhood infrastructure. The CAC approved leveraging funding of $1 million in conjunction with our transportation and stormwater department to design and resurface streets in this cycle from East Hillsborough Avenue south to East Osborne, and from North 15th Street east to North 22nd Street. And that funding was approved by the CRA board in September of 2018. My slides are a little bit out of order.
Mr. Johnson, before you go down to your indirect, I don't see, I know last time we talked at the last series, when we talked about the tree RFP. Where are we at with the tree RFP for tree cutting?
The tree for the stormwater pond?
No, for the trees in general. I thought the last meeting we had, council, we talked about allocating funds were going to be set aside to do trees. So when does that program start? I don't see in the presentation.
The person that we have that manages our facade program is working on the language that is going to have to come before you to be approved. So it's not only trees, but we're also looking at other components that were requested from the community that will get added to that. So that should be coming to you next month.
Next month. Yes. I got several people who are talking about trees, so I'm waiting on that. Thank you.
Yeah, my slide's a little out of order, so I'm going to go to the next slide first and then come back. Actually, 2 slides. Still under our direct investments from East Tampa, I wanted to talk a little bit about our environmental crimes unit. There's a lot of misinformation that goes on out there about what the environmental crimes detective does. So I want to kind of give you a little flavor of exactly what takes place on his agenda at most times. The CAC approved this fiscal year 20 budget, $144,000 for the environmental crimes program, addressing illegal dumping, code enforcement, and demolition of unsafe structures within the CRA boundary. This dollar amount, I know a lot of folks think that somebody doesn't deserve to be paid $144,000. That is not the payroll for the environmental detective. That number includes his salary plus benefits plus operational dollars for equipment such as cameras that are used for observation, things of that nature, operation of the vehicle that they use, and also that dollar amount includes the cost of fuel for that vehicle yearly. And as you can see there on the right-hand side of the slide, there's some statistics about the kind of work that the environmental detective does on a month-to-month basis, and you see his year-to-date totals there. The number at the bottom, 141 tons of trash and debris that gets removed from this community on a monthly basis. That's staggering. But that's the kind of work that this environmental detective does in conjunction with our code enforcement department and our neighborhood enhancement teams. So I want to go back now to these photographs and give you an idea, give you a little flavor of what happens out here every day. The first picture is addressed at 3220 East Dr. Martin Luther King Boulevard. This is a vacant commercial building that was boarded up and closed. There is a partial fence there here to access to the rear of the building from the east. A homeless camp was set up next to the air conditioning unit. The debris included carpet, bike parts, cardboard, clothing, rotted food and human waste that ends up being removed from these properties. Picture number 2 going to the right. This is at Eastern Avenue at East Polk's, Palafox Street. A large amount of illegally dumped furniture along the railroad tracks on the right of way. You can tell that the materials there were thrown out of a moving vehicle along the road. The location is 3 miles from the McKay Bay dump where materials could have been taken. He's established posting cameras at this location in an attempt to be able to catch whoever is dumping there. Picture number 3, going to the right, this is in Grant Park. Grant Park, a 10-foot wide citywide alley starting at East 32nd Avenue between Temple Street and North 51st Street. Detective Glider followed up on a citizen's complaint that there were homeless people living in the alley and were continuously burning fires back in that area. He discovered that the area was severely overgrown, and upon investigation, he discovered their camp about 75 feet into the alley. The alley has since been cleaned and the camp removed. Picture number 4, this is at 2923 Ybor Street. He discovered this home while trying to locate more properties that qualified for demolition. This property has been vacant for years and is in the estate of a deceased owner. The overgrowth was so severe he had to use a chainsaw to cut a pathway to gain access to the rear of the home. The entire back half of the structure was rotted off the house. A demolition case was started. The picture shows the kitchen area of this home visible from the backyard after they cut through the overgrowth. And then finally, pictures 5 and 6. This represents the property at 1513 East Dr. Martin Luther King Boulevard. This home is a bank-owned foreclosure owned by the Mellon Bank of New York. There were endless piles of garbage and furniture strewn about the property. It was discovered that someone was using the electricity and water. Detective Glider quickly got both services disconnected. The property will be monitored in the hopes of getting the bank to respond and clean the property. So there again, this kind of gives you a picture of exactly what this young man does for us every day in his responsibility to help us to eliminate the blighted conditions in this community. So I'll move on to our indirect on East Columbus Drive from North Nebraska Avenue to North 14th Street project. This is a city contract and FDOT lap project. This is an approximate $2.3 million bike lighting, sidewalk, and safety project with some street trees being added along the corridor. Transportation and Stormwater Department received 12 responses to this RFP and are currently being reviewed and scored. So that ends my presentation. Oops, excuse me, no it doesn't. Notable events, always have these notable events. The mayor had her first rendition of art on the Block project, which was done in Al Barnes Park on Halloween Day. And this is a photograph of the mural that was painted on the racquetball courts at Al Barnes Park. And some of the folks that were in attendance are displayed there. And that ends my presentation, unless you have any questions.
Councilman Digfelder.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Yeah, I noticed in the picture we were graced with former Mayor Iorio, who I believe Coach Barnes was her coach.
That's correct.
Out there, I think at King High, and she had that park named in his honor. So we're glad to see Mayor Iorio. Substantively, so I had a question in regard to this RFP. We're down to 8 firms. This is the RFP for mixed-use development on 26 vacant infill properties. So we're down to 8 firms. They're making presentations. I guess that happened yesterday.
No, that's what I was saying. That was canceled. We're going to actually end up interviewing all 10.
Okay. But my question is structurally, and I'm sort of asking council this question a little bit, is I guess traditionally, all this would happen and it would get down to one recommendation, and then that one recommendation would come to this board, and it'd just be a yay or nay.
That's correct.
And I'm just wondering, just thinking out loud here, but just wondering if that's what we want to continue with. Or, in the alternative, perhaps that the CAC and the administration staff would narrow it down to perhaps 3 propositions, and then those 3 propositions could be presented to us, and we could be a little more hands-on involved. You know, I think Ms. Zellman would probably agree that we have the latitude and ability to do that, although I haven't asked her in advance, but I just feel like, you know, we've talked about being more involved in making these decisions, and I'm not trying to take the decisions away from the CAC, but what I'm saying is the CAC can say, this is our ranking, 1, 2, and 3, but then at least it might come to us with a little more latitude as opposed to just yay and nay.
Councilman Miranda.
Thank you. I don't know what the city policy is. I'm sure that when you have a RFP go out, individuals, companies, all individuals have the right to make a proposal or not make a long process where they have to grade them. In essence, they grade themselves when there's an estimate that the city puts up on a job, and then they work from there. So then, when you do that, it goes through a process in the city, and you have various things you gotta do. Not only do you have to be the best price, but you have to be the best prepared. You gotta have the best equipment, you gotta have the personnel, you gotta have a lot more. And I understand what Mr. Dingfelder is trying to say or said, but I just don't feel that I'm personally gonna go away from what the city is doing in their department and create a different way of doing things when then the public can only see 3. But I wanna see the finalists. Certainly when the city does something, they get the top 3 and they give you a scorecard on everything that comes out through the budget. And they put the estimate from the city, the estimate they received, the date it's going to be completed, the equipment that they have, and sometimes even all the employees they have. And they have to meet a certain criteria. So why should we change and go to 3, even though the city gives us 3? They recommend 1. I won't be opposed to that. They recommend 1 based on the criteria of what they found out through their own investigatory things through the process of bidding for a contract. I would not be opposed to that, but I don't think that we're not on hands on the job. That's why we have the committees in those neighborhoods to do what they have to do, and they follow the direction just like the state does, just like the county does. I don't see why we should change it. Ms. Zellman.
And if I may, I am not an expert on procurement law. Marcy Hamilton in our office is, but the procurements that the CRAs undertake have to follow the same law and policies that any other procurement in the city does. So I would, before we get too far down this path, I would like to check with Marcy to even ask the question whether what Board Member Dingfelder is proposing would even be allowed under the applicable statutes and policies. So.
Also, if I could also add, the advisory committee, in its evaluation process, before they even made the decision to put this RFP on the street, they wanted to have the ability to be able to look at all of the presentations that come forward and to be able to make some decisions on what entity gets what properties. So in other words, there could be a very great project idea for 5 of those properties. That is exactly what this advisory committee is looking to have happen in its community. They might want to select that entity just for those 5 particular properties, not all 25 at one time. So they wanted to be able to have that kind of flexibility in their selection criteria. So by going through and interviewing all 10 of these proposed projects, they could come up with 3 or 4 or 5 different scenarios that, you know, company A has the best idea surrounding the properties that are located in this vicinity, and then select another entity to take another group of properties. You see what I'm getting at?
Councilman
So they
Dingfelder.
wanted that kind of flexibility.
Well, two things. Let me clarify. There's two items on Mr. Johnson's report. I'm only speaking to the first one, which is the RFP for the mixed-use development concept. Mr. Miranda, I agree with you completely. The next item says, as related to the CAC RFQ, 4 firms shortlisted by the CCNA committee. That's a different project. That one I agree with you. When they're doing that evaluation for the CCNA, that's much more complex in terms of architects and engineers, and I'm not trying to stick our nose into that one. The RFP is a little bit looser in terms of, like, company A might say, we want to build 50 homes, and company B might say, we want to build a grocery store and 20 homes, and that sort of thing. That's sort of ultimately that's going to be a policy decision that, again, I respect the CAC tremendously. I'm not trying to take away their role, but what I'm saying is ultimately, if we only have a yay or nay on what the CAC is recommending, it takes a little bit of that policy making away from us. Just throwing it out there. We can talk about it at a later date.
Councilman Carlson.
Ms. Zellman, when you're doing the research on purchasing, again, I'm new to all this, but my understanding is in purchasing, especially above a certain threshold, that there's usually like an ad hoc procurement committee that meets, and I wonder if the CAC is sitting as a procurement committee or whatever it's called in this process, and if they're following the rules that procurement and doing that, so we can understand more about how that works. But then to Mr. Dingfelder's point, I would not want for us to open up all RFPs for this, but if there's something above a certain threshold or something that meets a certain criteria, I would like to hear your proposal at some point. Maybe we could get through the discussion this afternoon on strategy. But there have been some complaints in the past about how some of these things were handled, and maybe the issue is handling at procurement instead of before us. But if you have a proposal, I'd like to hear it. The other thing is the RFP process. Maybe, and I think you've recommended this before, but maybe with a certain threshold of RFP, maybe we could review the RFP process and then approve that before it goes out also, because once we set the criteria, to follow law, I think we need to make sure there's objectivity in how companies are chosen. But if we can have input into the process, maybe that's an idea. Just throwing out additional ideas.
Councilman Goods.
Brings up a point I've been saying all along. When you look at these contracts, the RFP is the prime source. And it's what's put into the RFP that we talk about the diversity of the contract, those numbers. And I think what other cities do, and it's something that my office is looking at, I think down the road we need to look at reviewing those RFPs before they even go out anywhere, so we can make sure that what this city needs to have in there is in there versus it's just being written by someone, it's going somewhere, and it goes through. And then we come back and we hear complaints about we don't have enough diversity here, we don't have this, someone keeps getting the same contract versus having a system where you got a big contract, you might go to the bottom of the list, and now it's time for somebody else to get a big contract. So I think at some point in time, we may need to look at those things to see how these contracts are being given out and have a structure like other cities do, so it's a fair structure. So I agree with maybe in the future we may need to look at looking at those RFPs before they even go out anywhere.
And if I can remind the board, we did find there is language in your service agreement where any RFP that's going to be utilizing the expenditure of TIF funds, this board is supposed to review it before it's issued.
Anyone else? Mr. Johnson.
Well, thank you so much, and turn it over to Mr. Conner to do downtown.
Before you do that, Mr. Kiner, Chief, how much time do you have devoted to this board?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
How much time do you have devoted to this board for this meeting?
Today?
Yes, sir.
As long as you need.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Board, without objection, I'd like to pause here and open it up for public comment. Can we do that? Is there any objection?
Second.
Yes, go ahead. Motion made by Councilman Maniscalco, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is that All right, with you, Chief.
I was just wanted to bring up that we had numerous staff members here as well.
I understand it, but
I don't know how long you were devoting to public comment. So.
can I see of hands of how many people that are going to be speaking to public comment? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wow. Can we limit your and I asked you this. Can we limit your comments to 2 minutes so that we may hear your voices and that you can go on to your daily business? Would that be fine? Just raise your hands if that would be fine. No. All 3 minutes. Then fine. We will go back with staff reports. Go ahead, Mr. Kiner. You want to go ahead and speak for downtown. Where's Mr. Kiner? Thank you very much.
We don't want to be here all day.
Mr. Chairman. Just
Mr. Dingfelder.
friendly point of order. This body and city council as well has a history that sometimes when we have this many people and we want to move things along, we do limit it to 2 minutes. I'm going to make a motion. People might not be happy. I'll make a motion, limit it to 2 minutes. Let's do it now and try and work that out. That's my motion. 2 minutes per person. Any second?
I'll second. We have a motion made by Councilman Dingfelder, seconded by Councilman Vieira. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Nay. Let's have a show of hands, please. All saying aye. Saying nay.
Okay.
Mr. Kiner.
Motion did not carry with Goods. May I take a roll call vote, sir, for the record? Roll call. Dingfelder?
Yes.
Goods? Nay. Maniscalco?
No.
Vieira?
Yes.
Citro?
Nay.
Miranda?
Yes.
And Carlson? Carlson? No. The motion did not carry with Goods, Maniscalco, Citro, and Carlson voting no. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Chief Bennett.
Just a point of clarity for me and staff, was the motion for 2 minutes made so you could bring the public up first? Was that the intention?
Yes, it was, but the motion was denied. So, Mr. Kiner, please.
Have the presentation. Malcolm Kiner, CRA staff, standing in for Mr. Rosner. I share my cube is next to his, so I guess that qualifies me to present his areas. First in downtown, Herman Massey Park rehabilitation. City staff and city officials have met with the owner and representative of 214 East Tyler to discuss the potential for development of a restaurant adjacent to Herman Massey Park. Mr. Rosner will be presenting a formal update on this item at your December CRA meeting. The Tampa Convention Center renovations, the redevelopment of the exterior improvements, including the Sail Plaza and Big Ray's Fish Camp, received a chairman's award from the Hillsborough County Planning Commission. So I believe we had 4 CRA members in attendance at the award ceremony. So put this up here. Moving on to indirect CRA activities. Modera, Tampa, the mixed-use development. The developer has started the mobilization and lane closure on Tyler near the Times building. The Tyler Residences, which is I believe a student housing development, held their groundbreaking yesterday. Riverwalk Place, formerly Riverwalk Tower, is completing the demolition of the Cap Trust building along Ashley. And the AER Tower, that developer has begun clearing the site and preparing for the demolition and removal of the pedestrian bridge, I believe in the coming weeks. Notable events, we have to provide this presentation, so it's not quite up to date, but the Downtown Partnership held its annual Urban Excellence Awards. Harpoon Harry's and the Tampa Convention Center, the Sail Plaza, and Big Ray's Fish Camp were nominated for the award, but unfortunately we did not win. Moving
back to downtown. I asked Mr. Rosler the last time when he was coming back for this particular meeting to give me an update on Kid Mason.
I believe that's on your agenda.
Is on agenda?
And we have folks from the park staff here to provide that update.
Okay, thank you. I didn't see it. I'm sorry.
No problem.
Ah, there it is.
Moving forward to Channel District and the CRA activities, the design consultant has completed the 60% construction plans due in the next few weeks. This is a project phasing from phase A1 to phase E3. Phases A1 and A2 are currently under construction right now in the Channel District. Phases B through E3 are in some form of the design phase currently. Moving on to other direct activities. Madison Street Park, that's the park that's right behind the new Publix. Construction of that park is about 35% complete. This will be a combination dog, people park with a multi-use activity space. Indirect CRA activities, SPP is nearing the completion of the renovations of their large building there. SPP also received a Chairman's Award from the Planning Commission for their work at Sparksman's Wharf. A local neighborhood group, Notable Events, is planning a tree lighting event in Washington Street Park, and staff will get back to you with the dates of that event. Moving on to Tampa Heights, and I believe that's on this agenda today, the CAC there in Tampa Heights voted to recommend the creation of a special event co-sponsorship program to help with the programming of Waterworks Park, as well as the potential for additional riverfront or riverwalk events. In indirect activities, Soho Capital announced that Moxie will be their signature hotel for the mixed-use development. This is a Marriott brand, as well as a Sprouts grocery store will be included in their development. Notable events, the Heights Market in the last couple of months opened a new rooftop bar, as well as a new restaurant, Stone's Throw, at the north end of Waterworks Park. And lastly, moving on to Central Park, the CAC there in Central Park has voted to support an allocation of up to $20,000 toward the programming of a new community garden. We have Mr. Leroy Moore here that's going to provide an update on Housing Authority's property, so he may be able to answer any questions you have about that. The Encore development, just want to make an announcement. They have submitted an incremental site plan for the review of a new residential building with 282 units, again on Lot 9, and Mr. Moore is here to follow up on any questions you may have. And that concludes my report.
Any questions? Thank you very much, Mr. Connor.
Good morning, Michelle Van Loan, Economic Urban Development. If we can have the PowerPoint up for the last slide. I'm just here this morning. Sorry, I'm empty-handed. I don't have an award to bring you. We wanted to update you. We passed the budget, or you all passed our budget a couple months ago, and the port always adopts and approves their millage after we've already approved our budget. So we always come back to you with what that slight adjustment is based on their final millage. The port did decrease their millage from 0.1150 to 0.1050, so it did have about 0.1% effect on our overall budget. So we did go from $33,421,597 to about $33,421,056. The change is just a little over $40,000. So that will be coming to you as City Council on November 21st to do the official budget adjustment as part of your city budget. Any questions on that?
Any questions for Ms. Van Loan? Ms. Van Loan, you needed an extra second or two.
Yes, I appreciate your indulgence for about 90 seconds. I did want to make a statement. I joined the East Tampa CRA about 12 years ago, and during that time I wanted to recognize Sal Torito as a vital part of our success in our CRAs and ensuring that we always met a high level of standard and really set our bar to be an example of what well-run CRAs are like. During these years, Sal has been my CRA attorney, my professional and personal advisor, and a close friend, as he probably doesn't want me saying this publicly, but he performed my marriage ceremony last year when I got married. So I want to publicly thank Sal Torito for all he has done on behalf of our department and on behalf of me personally, and again, thank you.
Well said, Ms. Van Loan. Councilman Maniscalco.
And I have a fun fact about Sal that you may not know. And he'll correct me if I'm wrong. I think when he was up in New York, from his window, he watched some scenes being filmed for West Side Story from the movie in 1961. So that's cool. I mean,
now we have something to talk to him at lunch about.
Exactly. Now you know.
Thank you, Ms. Van Loan. All right, who's next? Is that concluded?
That's the
Okay.
reports. Now we're up to staff reports.
Thank you very much, Chief.
Item 3.
Good morning. Paul Dial, Parks and Recreation. Coming before you today, I understand at a prior meeting there was concern related to potential of rodents at Fair Oaks Park. I want to let you know that we looked into that immediately. We take that very, very seriously, the safety and the health of our users of our facilities. We actually had one that was captured almost 2 months ago. No incidences since then, so I want to make sure factually where we were. But the steps we've also taken with this is we have pest control that is there that treats the site monthly. We're coordinating with them. We've also went with our forestry folks to trim any trees around the building to make sure that we didn't have any potential of any climbing onto the roof from there and entry. We've also counseled our staff regarding proper use of trash and food storage, those types of things at the facility. And under logistics and asset management, the facility management staff has surveyed the park for any possible access points at the site. And also we're trying a ultrasonic sound deterrent as well, trying it at a site and see how successful we are with that. So we'll continue to monitor and ensure that we have a safe environment for our users.
Any questions for Mr. Dial? Councilman Goods.
Thank you, Mr. Dow, for your work. I believe there was a motion put on the floor for December to come back with a total assessment of Fair Oaks Park in December.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so we're working on that.
That's correct.
All right, thank you, sir.
We'll work on that. I believe that's scheduled for December 12th.
Thank you, sir.
Councilman Carlson.
Yeah, this was a request because during public comment, several members of the public mentioned this issue. And so thank you for the quick response on it and for monitoring it.
Yes, thank you.
Anything else? Mr. Dial, don't go away. I understand that there are a couple councilmen who will be doing callings for Santa Claus. And
I heard that, yes.
I want to thank you for that program that you are doing. I believe a couple of us will have to get wigs and some white beards, but I challenge any of the other council members to join in on this program. Thank you for that program.
Thank you.
50 pounds, I can't be Santa Claus.
Well, stuff a pillow in your shirt. You'll have that jolly St. Nick look.
If I qualify already.
Well, there you go. All she needs is the beard. We have Tampa Housing Authority that's going to give us a report.
Good morning. Morning, Chair and members of the board. Leroy Moore, Tampa Housing Authority, here to give you an update on two of our major projects that are taking place in City of Tampa CRA districts, specifically the Central Park CRA and the Downtown CRA. Have a presentation in front of you, and I will use the projector here. Just that. And my apologies for not having this electronically, but you all have this in front of you. Just all of our properties are spread, fairly evenly throughout the city. I'm going to be speaking specifically on what's enumerated there as number 3 and number 4 and number 1. That's our Encore development and our West Tampa redevelopment. These are those two sites as they sit in the city. As you can see, they straddle the Hillsborough River. Encore Tampa, which has now been under development for 9 years. It's a 12-city block redevelopment, and West River, which is part of a 150-acre redevelopment project that we're in partnership with the city and Related and Bank of America on. And I'll give you an update on both of those projects. Of course, this is what Central Park looked like just 13 or so years ago before we started the relocation. Central Park was 80 years old when we tore it down. It was 483 units. We relocated the families in 2006 to 2008 and started development in 2009. This is what it looks like today. Well, a year or so ago, the temple at Encore has now been completed. You can see that it's now, instead of one 28-acre super block of public housing with 483 units. Today, we are at 662 units that are vertical and occupied. of which 559 are affordable and 103 are market rate. It's a mixed income redevelopment. 4 of our 5 apartment buildings are completed. We're now moving into the commercial redevelopment phase of this project. Just to give you an update on the commercial developments, this is the actual site plan showing lots 1 through lot 12. Lot 1 is the new middle school. That land has been transferred over to the Hillsborough County School District. They have ground leased it back to the Housing Authority for the next 5 years to do urban farming. So we've actually now selected an urban farm partner, and they just got through permitting. I just heard the update. I can't speak to a $20,000 grant because I don't know anything about that. But the urban farm partner, I assume, submitted to the city or through the CRA for $20,000 in assistance. They have a leverage requirement. They've got to actually raise money in order to do the urban farm there, and they'll have that land and be able to do urban farming there for the local community for the next 5 years. I can certainly, have them come and speak to you specifically on the $20,000 grant. I just don't have any information on that. But Lot 2 is the Temple at Encore. Our latest development is actually 203 family units, mixed income. Lot 3 was the first development we completed. The Ella at Encore, 160 units, all affordable. Lot 4 is the Reed at Encore, 158 units, all affordable for seniors. Lot 5 is out for marketing now. We're looking for a developer or owner to purchase that lot from us and build an office or retail development. Lot 6 is St. James Church, which is actually located in the middle of Ray Charles Boulevard. It's under historic preservations. The final phase of its historic preservation is underway now. That will eventually become Tampa's African American History Museum at Encore. It's a 100-year-old church building, beautiful structure. All the outside is completely preserved now, and we're doing the interior build-out. Lot 7, the Trio at Encore, was our first family building, 142 units of family living, mixed income. Lot 8 will be the last development we will build on site. And the reason it's the last site, because we now have these 12 city blocks and we need staging locations for all of this commercial development as it takes place. We've always used a lot to have all the staging and lay down and the construction trailer and all that activity taking place. So that's going to be the center of the site. It'll be the last development built, and we'll eventually have 172 or more mixed income apartment buildings. We've already exceeded our replacement numbers on site. Once again, we started with 483 affordable units. Now we have 559 affordable units plus 103 market rate units vertical. Lot 9 and Lot 11 are currently under contract with private developer owners to develop multifamily market rate and workforce housing. Lot 10 is currently under marketing. We actually have 2 LOIs that we're considering for hotel and office development on Lot 10. And Lot 12 is our grocer lot. We're actually in design on that building. We will self-develop it, put 100 units of residential over a ground floor grocery store space. We're still looking for a grocer operator for our Encore development. Just very quickly, the Outlet Encore, that's what it looks like today. Just very quickly, our capital stack on the Outlet Encore, that was a $26 million investment. Once again, we had about $3.5 million that came from the city of Tampa home program and NSP dollars that aided in that $26 million development. The Trio at Encore, our first family building, and that was a $28 million investment. Once again, we had $2 million of support in that $28 million development from the City of Tampa Home Program. The Reed at Encore was our first and only 9% tax credit deal. We only needed $100,000 from the city for that project. That was a $28 million investment in Encore. And the Temple at Encore, our most recently completed development, and our largest development today at 203 apartments, was a $38 million investment with no local dollars needed from the city of Tampa. All total, including the roughly $3.5 million that the Housing Authority funded toward the $7 million development cost of Perry Harvey Park and some other improvements, we've had about $160 million of investment within that CRA, none of which needed to actually come from CRA debt, by the way, which I think is very important to understand. This is development that's actually spurring the private sector development that will take place in the surrounding area and increase the increment within the CRA without actually taking dollars out of the CRA coffers. So this $20,000 grant might be the first request for Encore. Once again, it didn't come from the Housing Authority. It must have come from the CRA, from the urban farmer, and we'll get clarification on that. I wanted to just sort of show you some of the work that's actually taken place outside of the 28-acre footprint of Encore, but within the broader CRA area. We funded $1 million toward the streetscaping of the Scott Street that leads all the way up to 7th Avenue to provide a better pedestrian connectivity for people living in Encore, traversing through Tampa Park to eventually get to Ybor City for entertainment purposes. We also have under construction a 7,500 square foot job training facility on land that was donated by the city of Tampa just a year ago. That building is under construction now. This is the location for the 2-acre urban farm. Once again, it'll be an urban farm operating there for the next 5 years. That land is owned by the school district, so when they are ready to build the new Meacham School, they will then take that land back, and that will become a school. And then we also have some large public art installation going in atop the stormwater retention pond vault for Encore. And I'll show you some images of what some of that looks like. Our 7,500 square foot job training center. There's a partnership between Tampa Housing Authority, the school district, and HCC to actually bring job training to the community to prepare people for the jobs that are going to be in market for the next 20 years. The technology park, which is also our dog walk park at Encore, is actually the park on top of the stormwater retention pond. That's where we have our solar array that offsets our cost for street lighting throughout the entire district. We actually have a public art installation going on there now. We've worked through the city of Tampa, through Robin Nye in particular, has helped us do a call for artists for much of our public art throughout Encore. And that work is underway now. We'll have an opening for that when it's completed, probably late December or in January. And St. James Episcopal Church, which will become Tampa's African-American History Museum in its final phases of historic preservation, about a $3 million investment all total. Moving across the Hillsborough River.
Wait, yes. Before you get there, and I know it's outside of the borders that we've looked at here, but the Jackson House,
yes,
that's a couple blocks away. You just mentioned this church that is being restored to become an African American history museum. But the Jackson House, being that it's one of the few remaining original structures from that Central Avenue business time period, which it's almost all gone, very few structures remain. Is there anything that you can do from your authority where we can look at preserving this structure? Because I asked this question to the previous administration when I first got elected. Nothing has happened. I know there's a lot of different parties involved. Maybe it's too far gone, but I've loved that house for years, and it's a shame that it's an original structure with so many notable people of the 20th century that have stayed there, to let it just rot away.
Absolutely. We love that structure as well. We've actually been part of the planning processes over the years, trying to save the Jackson House and trying to figure out a way to actually acquire capital to redevelop it, and it's just a tough one to do. For a long time, the control and ownership of it, posed some issues, and I can't tell you today what the status of it is. But yes, we would love to be part of any effort to save the Jackson House and bring funds to preserve it.
Chief, do you have any comments you'd like to add to that?
Thank you. To that point, I actually called for an all-hands meeting on the Jackson House so I can get a clear understanding of where we are in point in time, and I'll be happy to come back and share that with the board.
Thank you.
Chief, I believe they have a committee group that meet regularly about the Jackson. Ms. Carolyn Collins, are they still meeting? Or we don't
And that's
know?
what I'm trying to get an upload on. I need to understand the whole comprehensive
Okay.
aspect, so we can look at the capital side, the protection, defense side, all of that. Not much different than what we're doing at the Guida House, and the same exact approach to make sure that we relish these opportunities while we have them.
Chair recognizes Councilman Dinkfelder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of things real quick before we leave Encore. In regard to Jackson House, I've said this a few times. I think in its current location, I think it's difficult, and I'm so thrilled to hear that the church is going to be turned into a Black History Museum. I think if we considered moving the Jackson House, and I know it's very shaky structurally, but if we considered moving it over there to Perry Harvey Park, so it would be like at the end of the street. It would only be like a block away, and those two could work in synergy. Obviously, we need to fix it up and everything, and that's a lot of money. But anyway, just a thought. If you look and see where that church is, and then down at the end of that block is Perry Harvey Park, and we could move Jackson House over there, and make it part of that sort of experience, the Black History experience. I think it'd be really neat. But anyway, that's just throwing it out there.
Duly noted.
So, Mr. Moore, thank you so much for your information I have two questions about Encore. Number one, with the opening of the Publix, I got to think that it's got to be very difficult to compete with a real grocery that's so close to that, probably a quarter mile away up Nebraska to that Publix. So has that become a real impediment?
Yeah, that certainly has reduced the number of grocers that would be interested in locating in the area, but our site lends itself for a smaller box than the 35, 40,000 square
Right.
foot Publix. It was previously under contract by Publix, it was previously under contract by Walmart, and for different reasons, neither one of those grocers actually worked out. We couldn't get the urban, plan we wanted with Walmart, so we turned them down, and Publix chose the Channelside location. We've really been focused on a grocer that's interested in a 1 acre site that could do a 15 to 18,000 square foot urban grocer. It is a building that would be within a larger building, so it's an urban style. It's similar to, on a smaller scale, the one in Hyde Park, where you've got structured parking, and you've got a much limited number of grocers that's interested in doing structured parking within the grocer. Therefore, we've proceeded with developing or planning the rest of the building, the 100 units of residential over it, so that we can work out things like the transportation, how the trucks get in and unload, the pedestrian connection, so that we get the urban plan and scale right to our acceptance. And we also get the use that we want protected on the ground floor, which is for the grocery store.
Yeah.
We will eventually get a grocer. We're not in any rush. Of course, we'd like it to happen now, but if it's not in market now, we've got time to wait while we go ahead and build the residential units over the shell.
I guess you
And
could
find the
always
right
cut.
grocer that's interested
You
in
could
this
always cut
market.
it up into smaller units if that's where the market took you.
Well, we're planning for a 15 to 18,000 square foot urban grocer, so that's what we actually eventually want on the ground floor.
So my next question is a little heavier. In regard to, you and I have talked, I used to teach at Booker T right around the corner, and many of my students, half my students were Central Park kids. In regard to the percentage of return of families or folks who used to live in Central Park, then we had about a decade where there was nothing available there. And we always told them someday, you could return. Do y'all do statistics in terms of percentage return? And also, if so, how do those statistics compare to national goals, national norms, that sort of thing?
I can give you some current information on that. And our redevelopments have always resulted in between 10 and 15% of the families that were relocated off-site 3+ years later returning to the site. 100% of them get the right to return if they choose to. It's not a mandated redevelopment or mandated return.
Sure.
When we relocate them off-site, we do something, I think, better than anybody else in this country in the relocation process. The level of counseling, the level of the support services that we provide them, equipping them with the ability to make the right choices when they are relocating, makes a very big difference in having them relocate into an area of opportunity that has some special connection to them. It's either closer to job, closer to family, closer to school, closer to church in some cases. And in those 3+ years that it takes to tear down and start redeveloping the site, the families have built more of a connection in the community that they chose to move into. As opposed to doing a phased redevelopment of the site where you leave most of the population on site and you tear down a building or two at a time and you move people on site into new housing and not affording them that opportunity through relocation. The opportunity to choose to stay in the Section 8 or go into the Section 8 program, which gives them more mobility, more flexibility, the ability to actually connect with a neighborhood or people or a place that is important to them. So because of the way we do our relocations, it provides these families with more choice, more opportunity. And 3+ years, as beautiful as Encore is, as beautiful as West River is, as beautiful as all of our redevelopments are, they don't have a need to return back. They can always come and visit, but they choose not to return back. So our numbers are between 12 and 15% return rate of original residents. That's a positive in two ways for us. One, the families are still housed. They're still paying no more than 30% of their income toward rent because they either stayed in the Section 8 in the public housing program or they relocated onto the Section 8 program. So they still have the same level of subsidy support for their living needs. But it also allows us to move more people off the wait list. Instead of simply moving people out just to move the same population back in and having a more stagnant wait list,
and how does that relate to
85% of the families off the wait list.
How does that relate to national norms?
Yeah, nationally, it depends on how you do your relocation. Some housing authorities, if you have a 100-unit site, you may clear out 20 vacant units, and you'll do a building or two at a time. Miami has done a few projects like that in other cities. It's a longer and it's a more costly way to redevelop affordable housing, but it leaves the same population intact, roughly on site, because the families don't have the choice of receiving a voucher and relocating or moving to another public housing anywhere else in the city that they may choose. So it's the way you do relocation that determines the number of returning residents to the new completed site. And our relocations have always been a single-phase relocation where we make the opportunity available to everybody on site to relocate. 70% of them choose a Section 8 voucher. On average, 70% of all of our populations want that voucher because it gives them the same level of subsidy support for rental assistance, but it also gives them the freedom of choice to be able to move to a neighborhood and move as often as they want to, frankly, as their household needs changes, as opposed to residing in a fixed unit, where their subsidy is tied to the unit, not with them.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
When you use the term Section A,
yes,
sometimes it's a very not good word sometimes. I know the federal government has another code that they use for the word Section A, is it not? A number or?
No, the program is called the Assisted Housing Program. I mean, everybody knows Section 8, so I refer to it as Section 8. Section 8 just refers to the section of the housing code.
Because I was talking to a few developer friends of mine, they said there is another name for Section 8, a certain code, and I wish I would have had that today, but I think sometimes when we use that word, we get that NIMBYism. And I think maybe we need to look at another word or not using that word at all. You're just applying. And that way we will get away from that old NIMBY word of Section 8. I think it's just a bad tone that's just created throughout the years. So I'm going to find that and get with you, Mr. Moore, maybe see what maybe change that word.
Any other comments, any questions? Are you continuing?
Yeah, I'm going to go into the West River and just briefly give you an update on West River. So moving across the river to West River site, of course, this is the site just a few years ago. Of course, now the city has cleared out the water department site. We have demolished the 670 units of North Boulevard homes, so that area looks a little bit different today. This is our site plan. that shows some presumed redevelopment on the north end. This is land that we don't own. What we do own is this 44-acre site on the south part of the site. So zooming in just on the land that we own to give you an update on our progress to date. This is that area, and this is our current site plan. I want to orient you. This is Rome Avenue, and this is Main Street, or Moses White Avenue now. So Main Street, Rome Avenue, our old office building used to sit approximately right here. Referenced as T1 is a new construction building that's under construction now. It's about 45%. It's topped off, meaning it's at its design height. That's a 5-story over retail building. It's designed for all seniors, 160 new construction units, 100% affordable. T2A is the Mary Bethune high-rise. It was preserved. It's under renovation now. And that's going to be 150 units, 100% affordable for seniors. The next block over at Oregon and Main Street, T3A building, is a 118 unit building. It's a mixed income building. The T3B building is 130 units, 120 units on T3C, and T3D 120 units, plus the townhomes north of T2A. So all total, these are all the buildings that are either fully funded or already under construction. Fully funded or already under construction, 810 units to date at West River. So we're north of the number of units that we tore down by about almost 150 units to date. We actually have funding applications in on the T4 block on 2 of the T4 buildings. We actually have a letter of intent to purchase one of the blocks on T5 for residential market rate workforce housing, as well as a pending LOI for a tourist use on the corner of North Boulevard and Main Street. So a lot of activities in just 2 short years since relocation has actually taken place. To actually have 100 or 800 units already funded and under construction is an incredible feat. Thanks to our partners with Bank of America and related. This is showing the progress of the new construction building as well as Bethune High Rise that's actually under renovation to date. This is what the new construction building will look like. It's called the Renaissance at West River. That's a $45 million investment in the CRA. Once again, no CRA dollars have been requested for anything in the West River redevelopment area. This is what Mary Bethune will look like. The public art is actually just a placeholder. We're looking for an artist now to actually give us some art that's reflective of Mary McLeod Bethune's life in some way to actually grace that building. And at full build out, of course, this is what we hope to see at full build out of the 150-acre redevelopment area. If there are any questions.
Councilman Carlson.
Just, we can have a longer discussion about this later, but what do you see right now as the total unmet demand for affordable housing, and how much of that does your agency think you can meet over the next 5 to 10 years? And you mentioned not using CRA money, but we've all talked about maybe using CRA money. So if we allocated 30% of our CRA dollars toward affordable housing, could we partner with you all or somebody to help fill that demand?
Yes, certainly, with the Housing Authority or several other developers that are actually doing affordable housing, doing quality affordable housing in the community. And the reason we haven't needed CRA dollars yet on this redevelopment is because we've been very successful at the state with putting bond deals and 4% credits as well as 9% deals in place, having very aggressive partners in Bank of America and related, and also having the city at the table with their home dollars to support helping to close some of the gaps. So the city has been active financially in these deals, in most of these deals, but through the home program, not through using CRA increment. And that's good for us because, we like to see the CRA being used for some of the public infrastructure needs, streets and parks and things that's going to support the residential that we're putting in the area.
Sorry, what's the number on the unmet, did you say that already? What's the the number of people who are looking for affordable houses that can't find
Yeah,
them?
we still have a little over 20,000 people on the wait list today. But I hate putting that number out there because that is a false indication of how many people need it. A lot more people need affordable housing in this community than 20,000. It's a false indication because that wait list has been closed for over 10 years. Over 10 years now. So, and we opened the wait list up just for the Section 8 program a little over 10 years ago for 1 week only, and we got over 10,000 people applying just within 1 week. So if that wait list was open, you certainly have 50, 100,000 people. We've got 150 plus people moving into this community every day. So, you know,
So
we're
if the
producing
CRA
far less than what the demand is.
If we found money in the CRA budget for affordable housing, would that accelerate the?
Absolutely.
You know,
We need, you know, I think, you know, and I've said it many times, I mean, and the city is actually looking at some creative ways, including trust funds, so that we've got an independent, dedicated, you know, sustainable source of funding, much like what Hillsborough County recently did to actually close gaps on, you've got land, you've got developers that are interested in doing affordable housing, but these deals have financial gaps, and those gaps can be anywhere from $2 to $5 million on a typical deal. So, you know, having a fund that you can actually help developers close that last gap to make these deals financially feasible will get a lot more affordable housing developed.
Mr. Moore, could you please state your name for the record?
Yes, Leroy Moore, Tampa Housing Authority.
Thank you very much. Thank you for
my
your
pleasure.
report.
Thank you.
Is legal here for their next?
That's me, and
Okay.
if I could, I'll be quick. I do want to clarify, earlier, Mr. Dingfelder asked me a question about an RFP, and I was talking in terms of the type of RFPs for procurement of commodities or services and the procedures that apply to those. And the RFP, one of the RFPs Mr. Johnson was talking about in East Tampa is actually different. It was for the disposition of property. That's governed by a different part of the CRA statute, 163.380. It does require notice and submittal of proposals, but if the question was, can the CRA board be more involved in the crafting of those RFPs and the process for selection, that's something I'm happy to look into, because again, that's outside the typical procurement processes that I referred to. So I just wanted to clarify that. Sorry to create confusion. And the facade grant question was asked by Councilman Miranda, who just left. So do you want me to hold off since I have to stay here? Maybe we can wait and I'll do that later on.
That sounds good. All right, Ms. Duncan.
Good morning. Good morning, CRA board members. I'm here to answer some questions that were provided to my office through Ed Johnson, and I believe generated by the CRA board members. So I will run through those responses, and let's see if I can operate the clicker and talk at the same time here. So the questions center around a pond, one of many ponds that we have throughout the city. This particular one is, of course, in East Tampa. It's around the 26th Street, 26th Avenue, 22nd Street Avenue area, just to kind of give you a location of what I'm talking about here, just south of I-4. Again, this is just a more close-up view of this particular pond. It has a wetland component to it as well. So it's serving multi-purposes in terms of attenuating, retaining water, and also a wetland function as well. So questions that were raised regarding this particular pond. First was, why was this environmental pond created? Basically, the pond was created to alleviate flooding in the East Tampa area. There's a couple things that happen when there's smaller rain events. The pond retains that water, and the purpose of that is for the pollutants to have a chance to get collected and washed through the actual natural environment of grass and soil, and that way when they get into the aquifer or out any other bay areas, they're in a cleaner condition. As the rain intensifies or more rain comes along, that water is actually detained, or what we call attenuated. And the purpose of that is to hold that water so that the stormwater pipe system has time to take that water and let it flow down to its ultimate outfall, which is a bigger body of water. So the flooding downstream is prevented by retaining the water and allowing time for the system to, volume-wise, pass the water that's already in there before this water enters into the system. Next question that was posed was, is this environmental pond connected to other retention ponds? And if so, explain how. So this particular pond is not connected to other ponds, but it does drain a 200-acre area. I'll show you a map of that in just a second to give you a perspective. Most of these neighborhoods are north of the pond that drain into it. And it does connect to a pipe network and then to an outfall system downstream. So even though other ponds aren't connected to it, it is an integral part of a stormwater system. We have had some recent issues actually with flooding on 26th Street Avenue. We've done some TVing of the lines out there, some cleaning of the lines, and we're looking to see if there's some sort of issue that's going on beyond maintenance that we might need to address. And then just very quickly, this just gives you a shot of drainage area that contributes into this pond, generally to the north of the pond, all the way to up to about Martin Luther King, 22nd Street on the east, 28th Street on the east, 22nd Street on the west, and 22nd Avenue on the south. And then the question was, what's the difference between an environmental pond and a retention pond? And there is no difference. There is no really such thing as an environmental pond. A stormwater pond, a retention pond, is an environmental pond because it has a function of improving the water quality of the water as well as handling the water either through attenuation or detention to prevent flooding in a particular area. So that's a term that's out there maybe in the layman's area, but in terms of how we look at ponds from a technical perspective, there really is no definition or difference for a retention or environmental pond. And all of our ponds have to go through a process of approval from the SWIFMUD, which is the Southwest Florida Water Management District. They manage all bodies of water in our area, and we have to meet their requirements and their permit approvals for any pond construction or modifications. And then another question was, apparently someone is noticing that there's a certain amount of water in the pond or at different times. As mentioned, the pond is designed to temporarily store a certain amount of water until it can get released into the system. The other component is there to filter into the ground for water treatment purposes. So our ponds, if you go around the city, some of the water elevation is higher, some is lower. That depends on soil conditions, the water table elevations, recent rain events that may have happened, upstream and downstream pipe systems. So there's no exact elevation any particular pond should be holding any certain amount of water. It's very dynamic depending on the conditions in that particular pond. Next question was regarding the size of the pond. It's actually about 12 acres in size, and again, it drains about a 200-acre area, generally to the north. Also, the pond is zoned as residential. That zoning has been in place for many years. It was back in 1944 zoned as R4 multifamily. For reasons that I don't have the details of, in 1986 it was changed to an RM16 zoning, probably just to bring it into current zoning conformance at the time. But there's no requirement to change the zoning for stormwater purposes because we have to have stormwater ponds in all of our areas, whether industrial, commercial, residential. Ponds are required, so the zoning really is not a factor in terms of having a pond there or not. And this is just a map, which obviously for the audience is too hard to see, but just showing that zoning around that pond area. Next question was about the maybe future development opportunities for the pond. Question was that there's interest in maybe a grocery store or some other usable purpose for some of the land that this pond is on. There is a food need in the area. There's a documented food desert. So apparently there's some interest out there for repurposing part of the land for the pond for this. And so the question was, what is the financial cost to have this research and study? So basically, there is a potential to reconfigure the pond and create a developable parcel within that 12-acre footprint of the pond. And any reconfiguration that we do would have to meet the SWIFMUD criteria for design as well as our City of Tampa design criteria. And we do not have details of what that development proposal is, but we would certainly be happy to work with that developer that wants to propose something to us. And the next and last question was, is the city willing to research the development plan since the area would be used for public use? So basically, a developer would need to come in with a proposal to us that meets the requirements for SWIFMUD and city design criteria. We don't have any adequate information to react to anything as far as the reconfiguration of the pond. That would be upon the person that would want to come in with some sort of development that they would like to do. And our capital funds that we have for stormwater assessment, the way they were identified in our ordinance and placed upon our citizens for collection, we don't have the opportunity to spend those for development purposes. But we certainly are here in a review mode, in a support mode, if a developer wants to come in and propose something for this site.
Yes, sir, thank you. Ms. Duncan, thank you for your work. We've had some conversations. You know, gentlemen, it's a long time coming. We have several huge retention ponds in the district. And to come to find out this is 12 acres, that's a lot of land. There hasn't been any water in that property since I don't know when. I've never seen any in there. But the purpose, and I hear of the new uptown. I hear the midtown. I'm looking for Easttown. And I think it's that time for us to go the next step. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to need a little personal privilege right now, sir.
Are you wanting to make a motion?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
On this particular item?
Yes, sir.
Please, go right ahead.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for your leadership here. I'd like to make a motion. I'm requesting that Michelle Van Loan work with the Community Advisory Committee Chair to create a task force for development of the environmental pond in any adjoining city or CRA-owned properties located at 26th Avenue and 26th Street. The task force should look into what the people residing in the immediate community would like to see, as well as including potential developers to see what developers are willing to build. An update should be provided within 60 days.
Second. We have a motion. We have a motion made by Councilman Goods, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. Is there any discussion? Councilman Digfelder.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I think it's an exciting proposition. There is precedent, and Gene will probably remember this. You know, when you have valuable property that happens to be stormwater retention, you can't ignore the fact that you need the stormwater retention. But in certain places, you know, they engineer and they leave it underground. They vault it. Developers can vault it underground. Right next to Memorial Hospital, we did that years ago, and they put a parking deck above it, and they could have kept going if they wanted to. So there's plenty of precedent for it in the area, but it does take money. But if we could get developers that were interested in doing that, I'm sure we could work with them. I support the motion.
Councilman Goods, I'm not asking for a friendly amendment. I'm just stating, do we have a hydro engineer on staff for the city of Tampa?
Yes, we have a stormwater engineering team, so yes.
Can we also have their report on this cause and effect?
Again,
simply because we see our flooding problem in this city. If we're taking away this retention pond, what would happen to the surrounding areas? You said how many acres drain into this area?
Right, so it handles about a 200-acre basin that drains into it. What we're saying is that there is a potential to reconfigure and redesign.
I understand that. I just would like the cause and effect. That's all I'm asking for. There is a motion made by Councilman Goods, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Duncan.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Van Loan, do you have something for us now? Or is it Mr. Dial?
What number are we on?
We're now going to number 7. Mr. Dial, thank you. Mr. Dial, okay, you're coming up here for it. Thank you. Pleasure to see you again.
Good morning. My name is Brad Suter with Parks and Recreation. I'm here to report on the Kid Mason evaluation. I was asked to evaluate the facility, and I met with several Parks and Rec personnel who operate the facility to determine what their needs are, how their programming is, and what would really benefit the kids and the adults that utilize the facility. We have developed a potential scope of work, which does several improvements to the facility itself, and as that program for improvements, or potential improvements, was developed, it was determined that we really needed an architect engineering team, a consultant, to prepare the permit documents, the construction documents, as well as the hard estimates of what the potential improvements could be. A formal startup form has been submitted to contract administration to select a consultant through their work order system. And that process, they're doing their evaluations now to come back to Parks and Recreation with a recommended consultant. Some of the potential improvements include the entrance experience improvement. Right now, there's some safety concerns about check-in and the efficiency of the checkout system, as well as just some better security measures in that area. The restrooms need upgrading, ADA compliance, as well as modernizing. The kitchen is desired to be upgraded for improved performance with the large event space. New flooring is requested. That building right now has some bars on the windows. That's some safety concerns, as well as just not a real good aesthetic. So we would replace all the windows in the facility with impact-resistant glass, as well as improve the grounds as well. Staff is asking for a small playground to be put out front and fenced in, as well as additional outdoor programming, gardening space on the outside of the building. When you make these improvements, we're going to have to bring the facility up to current fire codes. Again, improving safety and making sure everything is code compliant.
Right. What about those offices?
Chair recognizes Councilman Goods.
What about those offices and also that middle space in the middle towards the east side of the building? I guess there's the playroom or the room where, I went there and it's a mess in there. It's really, the whole facility inside is so old and it's just a mess in there.
Yeah, they are really looking at how they want to program that building and how they want to attract more kids back to that building. The computer lab certainly is going to get an upgrade, not only just the computers themselves, but the stations, the way the light interacts with the computers. They've expressed an interest in having a small workout facility in that area that you're referring to. That also acts as a second mode of egress in the building, so that does need to stay clear again, safety is first. And then the offices, there's a main office up near the front, which we're going to add a window to allow better visibility throughout the whole structure, inside and outside. There's also some desire to put a clear story window in the large room. That room's a little dark, and that would be up very high near the ceiling, which then would allow light in and certainly would not impact the mural that's on the outside of that wall.
That mural is very, very precious to the outside, and maybe you referred to a little bit, but I'm glad we're working. I'm glad I was able to get some community people that called me about Kid Mason and go over there. I know some of the staff here were alerted, and some of their aides went over to look at that place, and I'm glad that the Downtown Partnership the CRA got involved with this situation now, because I don't think they really knew about that. So I'm glad we were able to put some light to get to them to help us out with this project, because it's a project that's needed, because you're going to have a lot of kids coming back in the area with all the new buildings going up across the street in Central Park. And we just need to upgrade that because it is a mess over there. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you. Councilman, I will entertain a motion to extend our time until 12:30 so that we have adequate time for public comment. Motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Thank you. Motion passes. Now we're going to open it up for public comment. Each public comment speaker has 3 minutes. Please proceed.
Yes,
a question before we start. If there's folks that want to
Come up to the podium, please.
If there's anyone that wants to speak on behalf of others, how can we concede that time?
Counsel, would you please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
What I actually needed was a list of names for people that were going to speak for other people. Make sure they were in the audience and you were to recognize them.
Okay, so under the city council procedures, which the CRA board follows, if someone else is here and is willing to give their right to speak to you, you can get an additional minute for each person. We need their names though, so we can make sure that they're here, or if they're all here, they can just come to the microphone and give their name and say it as well. We can do it that
Perfect.
way if you haven't filled out a sheet ahead of time.
Okay.
There are supposed to be sheets outside the door for this.
Thank you. We're going to let this gentleman go first, and then we will.
Mr. Matazzi. There you go. Chestnut.
Mentisnot, Tampa, Florida. Pimps, pussy, prostitutes, politicians, the same one, all P's. Don't care nothing about the people. Treat the people in their faces like dirt. Nasty. People come down here, take time from work, whatsoever, take time from their families, pay, get $20 and $25 parking tickets. And y'all put a bunch of regular reports ahead of them, instead of just having a structured time on when the public speak. 9 a.m. Y'all do awards, you do ceremonies, y'all outside chit-chatting, all kind of nonsense. It's a hate politicians have for people until it's time to get the vote. When it's time to get the vote, you have a love for the people, just like pimps and politicians. Y'all in the same baskets. And y'all treat the people, y'all treat us like prostitutes. When another fine hoe comes about, forget that one. This one's making me more money. Y'all treat us so bad. And now we ain't even talking racial. Y'all treat us bad in Bayshore. Yeah, I'm over there. Y'all treat us bad in East Tampa. Y'all treat us bad in Henderson, where you can't fix. I'm over there too. Y'all treat us bad. Politicians treat us nasty. I want to send a shout out to Otis Anthony. And also want to send a shout out to y'all city attorney that y'all claim that just left a garbage collector. That's what he is. And I have no problems with the garbage man, none whatsoever. Have no problem with the waste management. But this Sal man y'all talking about, straight garbage, nothing more, nothing less. Plain and simple. Presided and overseen a lot of bad stuff going on, killings, murders, $10 million lien on my property, all that stuff he presided over. Bicycle stops, all that stuff. 600,000 bicycle stops he presided over. What we need is, we need more funding for Lorry Park Zoo. That's what we need. Because in a minute, that's the only place outside of prison in this city, that's the only place you'll be able to see black people. Because y'all treat us like niggers. Y'all treat us bad. That's the only place you're going to be able to see African people is in Lorry Park Zoo. Y'all running us out of Central Park, Robles Park, other places, Ponce de Leon, College Hill, and you got a garbage man come from Tampa Housing Authority talking about the recidivism rate in Central Park. Ain't nobody over there. Look dead. D-E-A-D, dead. Y'all ran all the families out. Nothing more, nothing less. Black people in this city, we deserve more respect. And we can't come down here, keep begging y'all, begging for 4 stoplights, begging, talking about rats over at the park and all this. Black people, we deserve more than that, and we're going to get it.
Thank you, Mr. Daniels.
Good morning. My name is Michael Avalos. I'm the Vice President of the Downtown River Arts Neighborhood Association. I know some of you know about this organization and some don't, and so I just wanted to give you an introduction briefly. We are a committee of 9-member volunteers, 100% volunteer. We receive no compensation. We have full-time responsibilities outside of John. As a matter of fact, most of us need to get going. But we believe critically that it's important for you to hear our position on some matters that have come before us.
We represent 92 members and 13 residential buildings in our community in North Downtown. We are motivated by improving the community as identified in our mission. I do want to share our mission with you. Our mission of the association is to represent, prioritize, and facilitate the needs of Tampa downtown residents. We aim to accelerate and improve the community, its standard of living, through partnership with the City of Tampa, the CRA in particular, and the Tampa Downtown Partnership. Over the last 3 years, we've set up specific priorities. In 2019, first and foremost is safety, facilitating safety initiatives that improve resident business quality, community establishing deliberate relationships that add value to our members in the downtown community, and our vision is to sustain the physical, aesthetic, and activation of downtown corridor, and specifically Herman Massey Park. Herman Massey Park has been on our priority for at least 3 years. Drana, in 2017, we facilitated surveys with the public to identify what the needs are. Overwhelmingly, at the time, public safety was the biggest concern. We approached the CRA for funding, and as a result, $900,000 have been committed to revitalize the park. In 2018, the community feedback sessions introduced Carla Price as the project manager and provided a lot of background on the Herman Massey Park history, and also provided highlights on the surveys and the feedback that Drana facilitated and reviewed from our community and from our residents. This year in 2020, the park design concepts were introduced and public meetings were facilitated to hear the voice of the community on the design. Final decisions have been created meticulously based on the needs of the community to promote safety, flexible space, inclusive space for seniors and dog owners who use the park every day. I wanted to use my time to introduce you to the Downtown River Arts Neighborhood Association. I'm going to turn it over to Mike Panessa, who actually has, I think, at least 3 folks who are going to concede their time to him. Thank you.
I'm sorry, come to the lectern, please, sir. Do you have their names?
Yes, Jennifer Jones, Bob Yee, Rosie Yee, and also Richard Cahill.
The people that just raised their hands, can you please have a seat? Council, is that good enough for you instead of a list?
Great, thank you very much, and good morning.
So you have 3 extra minutes.
Perfect, thank you. My name is Mike Panessa, and I am the president of the Downtown River Arts Neighborhood Association. I am speaking on behalf of the downtown residents, and we have been working with the city and the Parks Department for more than 2 years on the redesign of Herman Massey Park. As you're aware, there is now significant controversy surrounding Herman Massey Park. As part of the city's own process, a design plan was approved after public input. Funds have been allocated, and the design and engineering phase is nearly complete. But now we have a private business owner who appears to have gone outside the city's own due process and pressed and lobbied the city to allow her control of a portion of a park, a significant portion of the park. This act would close off much of Herman Massey Park to downtown residents while benefiting a business owner for their own private purposes. We are aware this is going to be on the agenda on the December CRA meeting, and prior to that meeting, and because we represent downtown residents, Drana is proactively appearing here on our behalf to ensure that on the public record that our strong objection we are opposed to this disruption of this process. Excuse me. In addition, we feel it is critical that council be fully aware of the facts surrounding the matter, as we have been communicated to, and we are stating these for public record so that city council members will be fully educated as to Drana's own perspective. Point number 1, the owner of the property in question, 214 Tyler Street, has claimed in public forums that she was never formally notified of any meetings or hearings about Herman Massey Park. This is incorrect. The CRA manager, Rob Rossner, has clearly stated that the owner was well aware of the efforts to redesign and revitalize the park for use by downtown residents. Second, the Parks Department has documentation from the property owner's representative at the time, who was present at the 3rd and final input session for the park, and that the redesign was supported. Point number 2, the property owner presented their plans to Drana. The plans included taking, at the time, a significant portion of the rear of Herman Massey Park for private enterprise, And at that meeting, again, the owner again attempted to claim that she was unaware of the activity, but was publicly contradicted by Carla Price from the Parks Department. Ms. Price presented the property owner with proof of that contrary. Point number 3, the City of Tampa has in place a clearly defined process for these sorts of urban renewal projects. Drana has followed this process to the letter and has worked extensively with the CRA, the Parks Department, and other entities to revitalize this park for all downtown residents. Conversely, the property owner, who does not live downtown, has somehow injected themselves into the process at the very last minute. In point 4, this building is 4 floors. It's significant in size. Only 2 of those floors are being utilized for the restaurant recommendation. So the question is utilizing public space of the park the right use of and appropriate for this particular size building? And point number 5, Drana does not disagree with the potential for the restoration of older and historic structures. In fact, a restaurant abutting the park has merit, so we do not disagree with that. But now the owner and the lobbyist have come in at the last moment and is asking the city to stop the process, and that is what we object to. The neighborhood do not live in. Finally, the park is only 1/2 acre. While an adjacent restaurant is a nice feature, leasing the space to a private business means that the land is no longer public, and we do not support giving up public land for private purposes. In closing, Drana has formally communicated our position to this process disruption. However, if it is the decision of this board to allow the owner to disrupt the process, then Drana is adamant that the entire design process be restarted with strict adherence to city protocols, that the downtown community be involved in this process as it has been since day one when Drana initiated the idea of bettering Herman Massey Park, and that the process be expedited as we now have more than 2 years into this process already. And finally, that the Parks Department make short-term upgrades to the park to enhance its usability while the process is started over. Specifically, the park right now is solid dirt. The dog owners are increasing in their usage of the park frequently, multiple times a day, and we are the primary users of this park. And so while we are going through this extension of this process, we are asking the CRA to do something to the park to help support it now so that we are not letting our dogs run around in dirt. With that, I thank you very much, and we look forward to continuing this dialogue at the next CRA meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
I'm Dan Frogger, the downtown resident. Is it okay if I use the camera over
Yes,
here?
sir.
Okay. All right. So this is the.
Turn it around, please.
Sorry.
And there is a roto button on the top that will zoom in and out.
Okay, that's fine.
Unless you're comfortable there.
So this is the current plan that the Parks Department has developed for the park based on community input so far. The purple area up here is the building in question where they want to put a restaurant. They want to take, let me change to the next portion. They want to take I think you probably already saw this, but I just want to show you again. They want to take the areas that were to be the dog park and create a seating area for the restaurant up here. One of the main reasons that Drana asked for the city to redevelop this park was because we were having problems with homelessness, some drug dealing and usage and so forth. People leaving their belongings, shopping carts full of items in the park and so forth. And the reason it's so attractive for people to do these types of activities is because right now the park is very walled in, fenced in. It's got a lot of walls and nooks and crannies and so forth. So it's very attractive for people to sleep in this cranny and leave their belongings back behind this wall and so forth. So we wanted to kind of clear it out and make it more open so that you could see it from the street better, and so that would kind of discourage some of the activities that are going on there. So one of my concerns is that if this restaurant were to somehow come in here and take over this seating area in the back of the park, what happens if Ms. Malik over here is not able to get the restaurant up on legs and running? Or what if the restaurant opens and then it closes in a couple of years? What happens is that in the back of the park here, we have a large seating area, which is nothing. It's going to be a huge open area, which is not used, and it's going to exacerbate the problem we're having now with homeless people, people leaving their belongings, illegal activities going on, because you're going to have an unused section in the back of the park if this restaurant were to not be viable that will just make our problem worse. At the CRA-CAC meeting last week, Nick Calderoni, the restaurateur that she has coming in, he owns Green Iguana Restaurants. He was asked specifically how many seats you need to make the restaurant viable. He said 120 seats, and he was asked to confirm, is that indoors and outdoors? And he said yes, indoors and outdoors, and need a total of 120 seats. If you look at the plan that they submitted, there are 116 seats inside and on the roof, and then they have another 16 seats in front of the restaurant, which makes a total of 132 seats. He says he only needs 120 seats to make the project viable. He's got 132 within the building already, and then he wants to add another 100 in the park. That would be almost 250 seats for only 120 that he actually needs to make the project viable. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Good morning. Gloria Jean Royster, 400 East Harrison Street in downtown Tampa. I support the community gathering space redesign for Herman Massey Park. It is an inclusive design that was created in unity between dog owners, non-dog owners, seniors, the disabled, and rich and poor residents in North Downtown. We never had any dissension during the entire 2-year process until now. I am heartbroken that the downtown CRA-CAC, the majority of whom do not live in our neighborhood, voted to disrupt our plans for an inclusive park so that a developer can seek private use of our public space. We don't want half a park. We stand to lose our Domino's table, our event space, and additional seating that our non-dog owners especially requested. Our seniors who participated would rather have a shaded, consistent public space to gather than promises of affordable dining, which are not guaranteed. And the developer's proposed cafe seating incursion is taking a chunk of our tree canopy. We would love to see the adjacent property preserved, but not at our expense. I am asking my elected leaders, whom I voted for, to help us retain the only public space we have in our North Downtown community. Please reverse this alarming trend where neighborhoods, ordinary people, and public spaces are being besieged by special interest. Overturn the decision to change the park and adhere to the citizens' input. We spent 2 years collaborating and coming up with an inclusive plan that reflected true community agreement. The city needs to back the citizens and the community gathering space redesigned for Herman Massey Park. Please don't abandon us. Thank you very much.
Next, please.
Connie Burton. What we see happening constantly is that in East Tampa, the CRA is not functioning that give real people power. Ideas coming from the bottom up. And what we saw, and what I saw happen here this morning is what it really means, that when total control has been taken away from the people. So once upon a time you had lots, I'm talking to you, Councilman Gould, you had lots when you was on the CAC board and Domain Homes came and took them. You had a grocery store idea, that all went away. You didn't fight for it, it all went away. But this morning, a piece of paper. Let's looking at the retention pond. Ain't no bad idea, but let it come from the people. Show me the minutes where that's been our top priority. Show me the minutes where $1 million going over there to the L Bonds Park has been a top priority of that community. When we need affordable housing, when the medium income of the people living in that community makes less than $30,000, and yet all of this development that is coming in home development with their own crew to build the houses, it's over $200,000. You ain't doing nothing but committing economic genocide, gentrification to push the community out. And let's lay it out. Showing pictures about picking up trash and somebody making $144,000. That's a shame in itself. Couldn't even give a presentation to say, wait, some Christmas lighting is going to be in East Tampa to lift the spirit of our community, because that's always a third thought for our community, to show us in our worst possible light. And that's all right. But I can tell you, I won't be spending my time coming out here talking to you anymore. We done talked out. We done talked through Gwen Miller. We done talked through Kevin White. We done talked through Frank Reddick. Now we're talking to you, and our community still look the same way. We're going to have to galvanize in the community, and then when lights and the Super Bowl and everybody's here, maybe nationally you will be willing to speak to us. Okay. It's a shame. It is a disgrace that we can continue to talk about, and I talk to you specifically about homes, tiny homes, container homes. No motion to make that happen. You know why? Because it's not your wish. Keep on having the people begging, keep on letting the people live in poverty, that we have to keep on fighting for the same resources. We talk about Fair Oaks. We ain't talking about finding out how many rats over there. We want a new damn building. That's what we want.
Next, please.
Chairman, ma'am.
If you wish, Councilman Goode.
Ms. Burton, you know, it saddens me that you talked about Christmas tree lighting. For the last 3 months, I've been trying to work on getting a Christmas tree in our community, to lift the spirits of my people in my community. And I come to find out new information a week ago that wasn't all true, because I did my own homework and research, and I'm still working on that right now to bring that to fruition. So I'm working on that. As it relates to housing, I've done 3 housing events for East Tampa when I first got here. Had one 3 weeks ago with City Council for the first time, going to our community. When I look at the faces, I saw nobody in this audience that was there. I was there, this whole council was there. When you talk about tiny homes and you talk about container homes, this is what I see. What I see, yes, it might be a small quick fix, but in the end, it will bring blight and we'll be back at square one. That's why I'm advocating to make sure we got programs to get people who can't afford to buy a home right now, to try to get some assistance so they can be able to prosper, and also get money for financial assistance so they can be able to get a home. So yes, I'm working on affordable housing. It might not be the way you want me to do it.
It ain't got nothing to do about what
I
I want. It don't have nothing to do with what I want. But when you have a down payment assistance program, I'm going to respond to when he gets through, because he ain't talking to no child. I'm a full-grown woman.
Can we cut this very, very short, please?
So I am working. Now, it might not be the way you want me to work, but I'm working for me to bring what we need. And I'm going to continue to do that and work my darnest to bring the essentials to my community.
Thank you.
People are simply he responded to me, and I'm going to respond to him. People are simply tired of emptiness, and that's what your workshops bring. When you're talking about a $15,000 down payment assistance coming out of East Tampa, and it takes 6 months to get the money, we ain't interested in that. Be real.
Thank you, Mr.
And why would you be looking for Christmas tree lighting when you got Ed Johnson right there?
That's it. We will take a recess.
Do that.
Thank you.